You said that there will be reactions to those recognition from France and other countries. What exactly will be the reactions? What will your government do?
Well, that's for the government to decide. Prime Minister Netanyahu said it will not be discussed now. He will be coming to the UN, deliver his speech. He will fly to Washington to meet President Trump. And when he will come back to Israel after our holiday, the Jewish New Year, he will discuss what the actions will be.
So, what is missing to...
Oh, you go. That's all right.
Thank you. What is missing to get Israel back to a ceasefire?
So we are willing to negotiate a ceasefire. We know what it will look like. At the end of the process, Hamas will not be there. So we are still negotiating, and we are talking with the negotiators, and we hope that there will be continuation for that. But the end game, it will be that Gaza will not have Hamas control.
You say that these Western leaders, Australia, the UK, are making this decision partly based on their own voters in those countries' public support to end the war. Polls suggest that most Israelis also want an end to the war. What is wrong with listening to the people?
Well, for sure we want to end the war. You know, no one wants to send his kids to fight in Gaza. You know, my late father fought in Gaza, I fought in Gaza, my son fought in Gaza. How many generations? We have no desire to be in Gaza. That's why we pulled out of Gaza. But at the same time, we have a commitment for Israeli citizens who were kidnapped on October 7th and are still in the tunnel of Gaza. We cannot leave them behind. So with all due respect, and I agree with you, that you have a lot of domestic issues in different countries, but with all due respect to those domestic issues, for us it's a non-starter. We will make sure the hostages are out of Gaza.
Hi, Marina Usher, CBC News. 142 countries have voted to endorse the framework of a two-state solution. What do you have to say to them?
I told them that when they voted on this resolution, that it's a theater. They know it's not going anywhere. It's not going to change the lives of the Palestinians on the ground. It's not going to change the security of Israelis on the ground. It's empty. You know, and that's the problem with the Palestinians. They come here every year. They have empty victories, empty declarations, instead of actually condemning terrorism and build a better future. And as I said earlier, we left Gaza in 2005. We gave the keys to the Palestinians to build a better society and promote coexistence, and we saw what happened after.
Hello. Hi. Yes, you have said, you have said that you would speak, you would negotiate and talk to a dialogue with the Palestinians so they had a different leadership. What would you talk about, given that your Prime Minister has just said that there will never be a Palestine west of the Jordan River?
We discussed with the Palestinians so many times, but today we have to be honest and to acknowledge that there is no partner on the other side. You know, we all speak about Hamas, but the fact that the PA itself paying salaries to convicted terrorists, President Abbas himself, you cannot ask him because he's not coming here, but you can ask his representative why they have the pay-to-slay policy. 2 weeks ago there was an attack in Jerusalem, 6 Israelis were murdered. The families of the terrorists will receive a monthly payment of $1,000. It's coming from the pocket of President Abbas. So that's not a good sign for us. The people of Israel pray for peace. We want to have peace, but we want to know that we have a partner for that.
You may have answered this question before, but can I check? I mean, the fury of your Prime Minister to the, in terms of his response to the recognition of Palestine was clear. Do you rule out the annexation of the West Bank as a kind of backlash response?
First, you know, I don't like the word annexation. I call it applying sovereignty. You know, when something belongs to you, you don't annex. And I think it's a decision that the government will have to discuss. I don't know if you do it as a counter effort. You know, in the past we applied sovereignty over the Golan Heights, over East Jerusalem, but that's a discussion for the government.
You're not ruling out the possibility of annexation of the West Bank, a move that would be widely seen around the world as the death knell of a two-state solution.
So as I said earlier, everything will be discussed in the government upon the return of the Prime Minister from the meeting with President Trump on Monday. Okay, we'll have one last one.
What news do you have about the hostages?
I cannot hear.
What news do you have regarding the hostages?
So we just saw a video that was released by Hamas a few hours ago where we can see the condition of the hostages. You know, horrible footage. You know, we believe that 20 of the hostages are alive, but in a very bad condition. You know, in a few weeks, it's going to be 2 years in captivity. Some of them need medical care, but they don't get visitations from the Red Cross or from anyone else, and we know that they're in a very bad shape.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said today in a meeting with the IDF General Staff for the Jewish New Year that in the coming year, Israel needs to destroy the Iranian axis. What can you tell us about what parts of that axis Israel will be focused on in the coming year, and what are you going to do to try to achieve that?
Well, first, we achieved a lot in the last 12-day war against Iran. I think thanks to the US, we can call it a great victory. And we see the snapback sanctions are now in place. And I hope that the Iranians will understand that now it's up to them to decide where they want to go. You know, if they will go back to where they were, then the Western world will stand with Israel against them. I hope that they will change course and will understand that they have to invest in the people of Iran and not in building a nuclear threat. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Vous allez être à l'intérieur, pas à l'extérieur, à l'intérieur.
رايحين عنده يشتروا له الامير. Yeah. Bien. La 5e séance plénière de la
The
conférence
fifth plenary meeting
internationale
of the
de haut niveau
high-level
pour le
international
règlement
conference
pacifique de
for
la
the
question de
peaceful settlement
Palestine
of the question of
et la mise en
Palestine
œuvre de la
and the
solution des deux
implementation
États
of the
reprend.
two-state solution is resumed.
Mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen,
Mesdames et messieurs les chefs d'État et de
distinguished
gouvernement,
heads of state and
Mesdames
government,
et messieurs les ministres,
ministers,
Excellence Monsieur Antonio Guterres,
Your Excellency Antonio
secrétaire
Guterres,
général de
Secretary
l'Organisation des
General
Nations Unies,
of the United Nations
Excellence
Organization,
Madame Annalena Baerbock,
Your
Madame la
Excellency
Présidente
Annalena
de
Baerbock,
l'Assemblée
President
Générale,
of the General Assembly,
Excellences, Mesdames et
Excellencies,
messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen,
c'est un honneur
it
et un
is an
privilège
honor and a privilege
pour moi de
for me
coprésider
to
avec le
co-chair
Royaume d'Arabie
alongside
Saoudite
the Kingdom of Saudi
la
Arabia
présente conférence
this conference
conformément
in
à la
accordance
résolution
with
79
General
81
Assembly
de
Resolution
l'Assemblée générale du 3 décembre
79/81
2024.
dated 3rd December
Nous vous souhaitons
2024.
à toutes et à tous
We wish
la bienvenue.
to extend a warm welcome to
Permettez-moi à
each
présent
and
de
every
faire
one of you.
quelques
Allow me now
observations
to
liminaires.
deliver some opening remarks.
Madame la Présidente de l'Assemblée générale,
President
Monsieur le
of the
Secrétaire
General
général,
Assembly, Secretary General,
Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement,
Heads of
Mesdames et
State and
Messieurs,
Government, ladies and gentlemen,
nous sommes là car le
we've
temps est
gathered
venu.
here because the time has come.
Le temps est venu
The
de
time
libérer
has
les
come
48
to
otages
free
détenus
the
par le
48
Hamas.
hostages detained by
Le temps
Hamas.
est venu
The
d'arrêter
time
la
has
guerre,
come
les
to stop
bombardements à Gaza,
war, the bombing
les
in Gaza,
massacres et les
the
populations
massacres
en fuite.
and the
Le
fleeing
temps est
people.
venu car
The
l'urgence
time
est
has
partout.
come because there's a
Le temps de la
pressing
paix est
urgency
venu.
everywhere.
Car nous
The time for
sommes
peace
à
has come
quelques instants
because we're just a
de ne plus
few
pouvoir la
moments
saisir.
away from no longer being able to
C'est
seize
pour cela
peace. This is
que nous
why
nous retrouvons
we have
aujourd'hui.
gathered here today.
Certains diront trop tard,
Some might say it's
d'autres
too late.
diront trop tôt.
Others might say it's too early.
Une chose est sûre,
But one thing is
nous ne
certain.
pouvons plus attendre.
We can no longer wait.
En 1947,
In
cette
1947,
assemblée décidait
this
du partage de la
assembly
Palestine mandataire entre deux États,
Decided on
l'un
the
juif et l'autre
splitting
arabe,
of mandatory Palestine
et
across two
reconnaissait
states,
ainsi le
a
droit
Jewish
de
state and an
chacun
Arab
à
state, thus
l'autodétermination.
recognizing the right of each of them to
La communauté
self-determination. The
internationale
international community
consacrait là l'État d'Israël,
granted
accomplissant le
to the
destin de
state
ce
of
peuple, enfin,
Israel
après des
at last
millénaires d'errance et
fulfilling
de
the
persécution,
destiny of
et qui
this
put
people
fonder là
after
une si belle
millennia of roaming and persecution,
La promesse
and
d'un État
Israel
arabe,
founded a
elle,
beautiful democracy
reste
there.
jusqu'à
The
ce
promise
jour
of an Arab state to
inachevée.
date remains unfulfilled.
Depuis lors, c'est un long chemin
then,
d'espérance et de désespoir mêlés.
There's been a long path
Israéliens
of
et
hope
Palestiniens ont
and
parcouru
despair
chacun à leur
intertwined,
manière.
which Israelis and Palestinians have gone
Nous
down,
avons
each in their
cheminé
own
avec
way.
eux,
We
chacun
have
d'entre nous selon
walked
son
alongside
histoire
them,
et
each
selon
of
sa
us in
sensibilité.
keeping with our history
Mais la
and our
vérité
sensibilities.
est que nous
But the
portons la
truth is that
responsabilité collective
we bear a
d'avoir
collective
failli
responsibility
jusqu'ici à bâtir une paix juste et durable
for, to
au
date,
Proche-Orient.
having failed to
C'est
build
l'évidence
just and
même qui
lasting
s'est
peace
imposée à
in
nous le
the
7 octobre
Middle East.
2023,
This is what became
lorsque le peuple
evident
israélien a subi
to
la
us on the
pire
7th of
attaque
October
terroriste de
2023,
son
when the
histoire.
Israeli people suffered the worst terrorist
1224
attack in its
hommes,
history.
femmes et enfants tués,
1,224 men, women, and children
4834
killed,
hommes, femmes et enfants
4,834 men, women, and children
251
injured,
hommes, femmes et enfants enlevés.
251 men, women, and
La barbarie du
children
Hamas et de
taken
ceux qui ont
hostage.
collaboré à ce massacre a
The cruelty
stupéfié
of Hamas
Israël et
and
le monde.
all those who collaborated in this
Le 7
massacre
octobre, le 7 octobre
dumbfounded Israel
est une
and astounded the
blessure
world.
encore vive
The 7th
pour
of
l'âme
October
israélienne
remains an
comme pour la
open
conscience
wound
universelle.
for
Nous la
the
condamnons sans
Israeli
aucune
soul
nuance,
and
car
for
rien,
our universal
jamais,
conscience. We
nulle part,
condemn it
ne peut
unequivocally because
justifier de recourir au
nothing,
terrorisme.
never, nowhere can
Nous
justify
pensons
having
en
recourse
ce
to
jour aux
terrorism.
victimes et à leurs familles.
Minds go out
Nous
and
disons
hearts go
notre
out to the
compassion aux
victims and their
Israéliens
families.
et exigeons avant
We've
toute autre
expressed our
chose que tous
compassion
les otages
to
encore
all
détenus
Israelis
par le Hamas
and
soient
first and
libérés
foremost
sans aucune
demand for
condition.
all hostages still held by
Nous, Français,
Hamas to be
avons rendu
freed
un hommage
unconditionally.
national à nos 51 compatriotes assassinés ce jour-là
The French
et à toutes les
paid
victimes du
tribute
7 octobre
to the
2023.
51 French men and women assassinated on
oublierons
that
pas.
day and all other victims
Jamais. Comme
of
jamais, nous ne
October
cesserons
7th.
le
We will never
combat
forget them.
existentiel
Never.
contre l'antisémitisme.
just like we will never stop
Français,
the existential fight
nous
against
savons la morsure du
anti-Semitism.
terrorisme. Nous
The French
portons
people
au cœur
know
le
the sting
souvenir
of
du
terrorism,
témoignage de fraternité
and our
offert
hearts
après les
remember
attentats commis à
the
Paris le
expression
7
of
janvier
the bonds
2015
of brotherhood
par
following
des
the terrorist
dizaines de
attacks committed in
dirigeants
Paris on the
étrangers
7th of January
manifestant
2015,
avec au premier rang
when
desquels
dozens of
le Premier
foreign
ministre
leaders
israélien
were in the
et le
ranks of
président
those offering
de
their sympathies,
l'autorité
among which
palestinienne.
the Israeli Prime
Nous
Minister and the
savons
President of the
qu'aucune
Palestinian
faiblesse n'est
Authority.
possible face
We
aux
know
terroristes.
that
Nous savons
you
aussi
cannot show
le
weakness
danger
in the face of
des
terrorism,
guerres sans fin.
but we also know
Nous
the
savons
perils
que
of
le
endless
droit
wars.
toujours
We know that
doit l'emporter
right
sur la force.
must always prevail,
Nous savons
that
enfin
right
de
must
notre
always
histoire
prevail over might.
que l'attachement à
We
l'universel
know
et à la
from
paix
our
est
own
l'héritage
history
des siècles
that
passés comme la
the commitment,
condition du salut.
a universal commitment to peace,
J'affirme cela
is the legacy
au nom
of
de notre
centuries
amitié
gone
avec
by,
Israël, à
and
qui
the only
notre
way
engagement n'a jamais
towards
fait défaut.
salvation.
Au nom de
And
notre amitié aussi
on
avec le
behalf of
peuple
our friendship
palestinien,
with Israel,
pour qui nous voulons que la promesse
our commitment
initiale
to
des
which has
Nations
never
Unies,
faltered in the name of
celle
our
de
friendship with
deux
the
États
Palestinian
vivant
people,
côte à côte en paix et en
for whom we want
sécurité,
the initial promise of the
devienne
UN Charter to be
réalité.
fulfilled, we want two states living side by
Or,
side
à
in
cette
peace
heure,
and security to become a reality.
Israël étend
However,
encore ses opérations
currently
militaires à
Israel
Gaza
is
dans
further
l'objectif
extending its
déclaré
military operation
de
in Gaza
détruire le
with the
Hamas.
stated objective of
Mais ce
destroying
sont les
Hamas.
vies de centaines
But
de milliers de
there are
personnes déplacées,
hundreds of thousands of
blessées,
people who have been
affamées,
displaced,
traumatisées, qui
injured,
continuent d'être détruites,
famished,
alors même que
traumatized.
le Hamas a été
Their lives
considérablement
are still
affaibli
being destroyed.
et que la négociation
Although
d'un
Hamas has
cessez-le-feu
been
durable
considerably
reste le moyen le plus sûr
and despite the fact that
d'obtenir la
negotiations
libération
on
des
a permanent
otages.
ceasefire are the
Rien,
surest means of
rien ne
ensuring
justifie plus la
the release
poursuite de
of
la guerre à
hostages.
Gaza.
Nothing
Rien.
justifies the ongoing war in
Tout
Gaza.
commande au
Nothing.
contraire d'y mettre un
On the
terme
contrary,
définitif
everything compels
maintenant,
us to
à
definitively
défaut de l'avoir fait
end
plus
it,
tôt,
since we
pour
didn't do it
sauver des
earlier.
vies.
We must do this to save
Les vies
lives.
des otages
The
israéliens
lives
encore
of
détenus
Israeli
dans des conditions
hostages
atroces,
detained
les vies
in
des centaines de
atrocious
milliers de civils palestiniens
conditions, the
accablés par
lives
la
of
faim,
hundreds
la
of
souffrance,
thousands
la
of
peur de
Palestinian
mourir,
civilians
le
who are
deuil de leurs
tormented
proches.
by hunger, suffering,
Sauver toutes les vies.
the fear of dying,
Car
mourning
depuis
for their
désormais
loved
près de
ones.
2
We must
ans,
save all
c'est bien la
lives, because for
négation de
almost 2 years now,
l'humanité
it
de
is
l'autre
the denial
et le
of the
sacrifice
humanity
de
of
la
the
vie
other
humaine qui
and the
prévalent.
sacrifice of human life
Oui.
which have prevailed.
Depuis le 7
Yes,
octobre,
since the
c'est
7th
bien
of
la vie de
October,
l'autre qui
it
est
is
niée.
the life of the other.
Nous le
that is
disons depuis
being
le
denied.
premier jour de la guerre à Gaza, une
We've been
vie
saying this
vaut
since the
une
first
vie.
day of the war in Gaza.
Je
A
le
life
sais,
is a life.
pour avoir pris dans mes bras
I
les
know
familles
this
des
because I
otages
held
rencontrés à Tel
in
Aviv
my
puis à
arms the
Paris.
families of
Et je pense à
hostages
cet
I met in
instant
Tel
à
Aviv
la mère
and
d'Eyatar
in
David,
Paris.
otage
I'm thinking
affamé
of the
et
mother
montré à la
of
foule par ses
Eyatar
bourreaux.
David,
Je
a
pense à
hostage who was
Nimrod
famished
Cohen,
and displayed.
otage de 19 ans dont je viens de
I'm
saluer
thinking
le
of
père.
Nimrod Cohen, a
Je le
19-year-old
sais.
hostage whose
Pour être
father
allé
I just met.
aussi au
I
chevet des victimes
also know this
palestiniennes des
because I was
opérations
at the
militaires
bedside of the
israéliennes,
Palestinian victims
réfugiés
of
à
Israeli
Al-Arish,
military
des
operations,
femmes,
refugees in
des enfants,
Al-Arish, women
dont je
and
n'oublierai
children.
pas le regard.
I will never forget the way they looked
Je
at
le
me.
sais. Pour
I
avoir
know this
rencontré des jeunes de
because I met
Gaza accueillis en
young people
France,
from Gaza
et je pense
who
à
we
Rita Baroud,
are hosting
qui
in
aurait dû être
France. I'm
avec
thinking
nous
of
aujourd'hui
Rita Baroud,
et qui
who
continue de
should have
témoigner de
been
la
with us
détresse de ses proches à
today, who
Gaza.
continues to be a witness
Une
to the
vie
distress of
vaut une vie.
her loved ones in Gaza. A life
Et
is
notre
a life.
devoir à tous
We are duty-bound, all of us,
est de protéger les uns
to
et les
protect
autres.
each other.
Devoir
This
indivisible
duty is
comme l'est notre
indivisible,
humanité commune.
just as our common humanity is indivisible.
Une solution existe
There is
pour
a
briser le
solution,
cycle
a
de
way
la
of
guerre et
breaking
de la
the cycle
destruction.
of war and destruction.
C'est la
It
reconnaissance
lies in the
de l'autre,
recognition of
de
the
sa
other,
légitimité,
of his
de
and her
son
legitimacy,
humanité, de sa
humanity,
dignité.
and dignity.
Que les uns et les autres rouvrent les yeux et
We
voient
must
des visages
reopen
humains,
our eyes and
là où la
see
guerre a placé
human
le masque de
faces
l'ennemi ou les
there
traits d'une
where
cible.
war has deposited the mask
C'est
of
la
the enemy
reconnaissance
or the marks of a
qu'Israéliens
target.
et Palestiniens
We must
vivent
recognize that
dans une
Palestinians
solitude
and
jumelle.
Israelis
Solitude des
are living
Israéliens
in
après le
twin
cauchemar historique
solitude.
du 7
The
octobre
solitude of the
2023.
Israelis following the historic
Solitude des
nightmare of the
Palestiniens
7th of October 2023
à bout
and
de
the
force
solitude of
dans
Palestinians.
cette guerre
Palestinians
sans fin.
at their wits' end in the face of this
Le temps est
ceaseless
venu.
war. The time has come
Car le pire peut advenir.
because the
qu'il s'agisse du sacrifice
worst
de tant d'autres
could
civils,
still come to
de
pass.
l'expulsion de
The
la
sacrifice
population
of
de
more
Gaza vers
civilians, the
l'Égypte,
expulsion
de
of the people
l'annexion
of
de la
Gaza to
Cisjordanie,
Egypt, the
de la
annexation
mort
of
des
the West
otages
Bank,
détenus par
the
le
death
Hamas,
of hostages
ou des
detained
faits
by
accomplis
Hamas,
qui changent de manière
all facts on the
irréversible
ground
la
which could
situation sur le
irreversibly
terrain.
change the situation there on the ground.
C'est pour cela
This is why.
C'est pour cela que nous
This is
devons
the very reason
aujourd'hui,
that today,
ici même,
here in
ouvrir
this
ce
chamber,
chemin de
we
paix.
must pave
Car
the
depuis
way
juillet
for
dernier,
peace,
l'accélération
because
des
since July
événements
of last
est
year,
terrible. Et au point où nous en
developments
sommes,
have
il est à craindre
accelerated.
que les accords
And
d'Abraham ou de Camp
at this
David
point,
soient
we have
remis en
reason to
cause
fear
par
that
l'action
the Abraham
d'Israël
Accords,
et que
the
la
Camp
paix
David
devienne
Accords
impossible
could
pour
be called into
longtemps au
question by
Moyen-Orient.
Israel, and that peace would become
Il pèse
impossible
donc sur
for a
nous
long time yet in the
une
Middle East. It
responsabilité
thus falls to
historique.
us this historic responsibility.
Nous devons tout
We
faire
must do
pour
everything within our
préserver la
power
possibilité
to
même
preserve the very
d'une solution
possibility of
à deux
a
États,
two-state solution.
Israël et la
Israel and
Palestine,
Palestine
vivant
living
côte à
side
côte,
by side
en paix
in peace
et en
and
sécurité.
security.
Le temps est venu.
The time has
C'est
come.
pourquoi,
This is why,
fidèle à
true
l'engagement
to the
historique de mon pays au
historic commitment
Proche-Orient
of my country
pour
to
la
the Middle
paix
East,
entre le peuple israélien
to peace
et
between
le peuple palestinien,
Israelis and the Palestinians,
je déclare
this is why
que la France
I
reconnaît
declare that
aujourd'hui
today
l'État de
France
Palestine.
recognizes the state of Palestine.
Cette reconnaissance est une manière
recognition
d'affirmer que
is
le
a
peuple
way
palestinien
of
n'est
affirming
pas un
that the
peuple en
Palestinian
trop,
people
qu'il
is
est
not a
au
people too
contraire
many.
ce
On
peuple
the
qui ne dit
contrary,
jamais adieu à rien,
this is a
pour
people
parler
who
avec
never
Mahmoud
says
Darwish,
goodbye to
un peuple
anything,
fort de
as
son
Mahmoud
histoire, de
Darwish
son enracinement,
said.
de sa dignité.
A people
Et la
with a strong
reconnaissance des
history,
droits légitimes
roots
du
and
peuple
dignity.
palestinien
The
n'enlève
recognition
rien
of the
aux droits
legitimate
du
rights of the
peuple
Palestinian
israélien,
people takes
que la
nothing
France
away
a
from the rights
soutenu dès
of
le
the people
premier
of
jour
Israel,
et au respect
who
desquels
France
elle n'est pas moins
supported
attachée.
from day one, and to the
Précisément car
respect
nous
of
sommes
which it is
convaincus
staunchly
que
committed.
cette
This is
reconnaissance
why we're
est la
so
solution
convinced
qui
that this
seule
recognition is the
permettra la paix
only
pour
solution
Israël.
that will allow
Jamais la France
for
n'a
Israel
manqué
to
à
live in
Israël
peace.
quand sa
France
sécurité
has never
était en
wavered
jeu,
standing by
y compris
by
face aux
Israel's
frappes
side, even
iraniennes.
when its security was at
Cette
stake, including
reconnaissance
when there were
de l'État de
Iranian
Palestine
airstrikes.
est
This
une
recognition of the
défaite
state of
pour le
Palestine
Hamas, comme pour tous
is
ceux qui attisent la haine
a defeat for
antisémite,
Hamas,
nourrissent
just like
des
for all
obsessions
those who foment
antisionistes et veulent
anti-Semitism,
la destruction
nurture
de l'État
anti-Zionist
d'Israël.
obsessions, and who want
Cette
the destruction of the
reconnaissance
state
de la
of Israel.
France
This recognition
est accompagnée
by France
par celles qui seront annoncées aujourd'hui,
goes
entre
hand in hand
autres,
with
et je les en
others,
remercie,
which will be
celles
announced today, and I
d'Andorre, de
thank them:
l'Australie, de la
Andorra,
Belgique,
Australia,
du
Belgium,
Canada, du Luxembourg, de
Luxembourg,
Malte,
Malta,
de Monaco,
Monaco,
du Portugal, du
Portugal, the
Royaume-Uni,
United
de
Kingdom,
Saint-Marin, qui ont
San
attendu
Marino.
avec nous ce moment.
They
Et saisissant l'appel de
are
juillet
here
dernier,
today.
ont fait
They
le choix de la
answered our call
responsabilité, de
issued in
l'exigence
July
et de la paix.
and took
Cela,
the responsible
après le
choice, the
choix fait par
necessary choice, the
l'Espagne,
choice
l'Irlande,
to opt for
la
peace.
Norvège et la Slovénie
Spain,
en
Ireland,
2024
Norway,
et
and
tant
Sweden
d'autres auparavant.
are also
Cette
going down
reconnaissance
the same path,
ouvre
and
le
many
chemin
others
d'une
did
négociation
before us too.
utile aux Israéliens
This
comme
recognition
aux
paves the
Palestiniens.
way for useful
Ce
negotiations,
chemin
useful for
est celui
Israelis
du
and
plan de paix et de
Palestinians.
sécurité
This
pour
path
tous
is a path
que l'Arabie
towards a
saoudite et la
peace and
France ont
security plan
soumis au
for
vote de
all.
cette Assemblée
France and Saudi
qu'il a
Arabia submitted this
adopté
plan
à une
to
très
this
large
assembly,
majorité.
and it adopted it by a
Il porte
large
notre
majority.
ambition commune de
It
briser
carries our
l'engrenage de
common
la violence
ambition to
et de
break the
changer la
spiral
donne
of
sur le terrain.
violence and to change
Nous avons
the
su
situation
faire
on
un
the
pas
ground.
les uns vers les
We
autres,
managed to take a
sortir de
step
nos postures
towards one
habituelles et
another,
nous
to move
donner
away
des
from
objectifs
our
concrets. Il nous appartient
habitual
maintenant
stances
ensemble
and to set
de
concrete
déclencher
objectives.
une mécanique
We
de
must
paix
now set in
répondant
motion
aux
a
besoins
cycle
de
of
chacun.
peace that meets the needs
Le
of
premier temps de
all
ce plan de
parties.
paix et de sécurité
The
pour
top
tous est
priority
celui de
of this
l'urgence
peace and security
absolue,
plan,
celle de coupler
and
la
it's
libération
very
des 48
urgent,
otages
that is to
et la
ensure
fin des
the
opérations
release of 48
militaires sur
hostages
tout le
and put an
territoire
end
de Gaza.
to military operations throughout the
Je
territory
salue
of
les
Gaza.
efforts du Qatar, de
I
l'Égypte
commend the
et des
efforts undertaken by
États-Unis pour y
Qatar,
parvenir
Egypt, and
et
the
demande à
US to
Israël
achieve
de
this.
ne
I
plus rien
ask
faire
Israel
qui
to
entrave
do
leur
nothing more
aboutissement.
that would thwart these efforts
Le
coming to
Hamas a été
fruition.
vaincu sur le plan
Hamas was
militaire par la
vanquished on
neutralisation
the
de ses
military
chefs
front
et de ses
as we
décideurs.
neutralized its
Il
leaders
doit
and
l'être sur le
decision
plan
makers.
politique
It must
pour être
also
véritablement
be
démantelé.
vanquished
Dès lors que le
politically to
cessez-le-feu
be
aura été
truly
agréé,
dismantled.
c'est un
As
effort
soon as a
massif que nous devons
ceasefire is
produire
agreed,
collectivement
we
pour
must
porter
mount a
secours à la
massive collective
population de
effort
Gaza.
to provide
Et je
assistance to
remercie
the people of
l'Égypte
Gaza.
et
I'd
la
like to thank
Jordanie
Egypt
de leur
and Jordan
engagement
for their
ici
commitment
et rappelle à
and
Israël l'obligation
recall
absolue qui est la
recall
sienne
Israel's
de faciliter l'accès
absolute
humanitaire à
obligation
Gaza pour aider
that
une
is to
population
facilitate
aujourd'hui
humanitarian access
démunie
to
de tout.
Gaza to assist its population, which has
deuxième
lost
temps
everything.
Et celui de la
The
stabilisation
second
et
priority
de la
is to
reconstruction
stabilize and to
à
rebuild
Gaza.
Gaza.
Une administration de transition
transition
intégrant l'autorité
administration incorporating
palestinienne,
the Palestinian
la jeunesse
Authority,
palestinienne,
as well as
accompagnée de
the
forces de
young people of
sécurité dont nous
Palestine,
accélérerons
together
la
with
formation,
security forces,
aura
the
le
establishment of
monopole
which
de
we
la
will
sécurité à
accelerate,
Gaza.
will have the
Elle
monopoly
mettra en
over
œuvre le
security in Gaza. It
démantèlement
will
et
implement
le
the dismantlement
désarmement
and
du
disarmament
Hamas,
of Hamas.
avec le
And this
soutien des
with the
partenaires
support of international
internationaux
partners
et les moyens qui seront
and the
nécessaires
necessary
à cette mission
means
difficile.
required for this difficult
La France
mission.
est prête à contribuer à une
stands
mission
ready to
internationale de
contribute to
stabilisation
an international
et à
stabilization
soutenir,
mission,
avec
as well
ses
as to
partenaires
support,
européens,
together with our European
la
partners,
formation et
the
l'équipement des
establishment
forces de
and
sécurité palestiniennes.
equipping of Palestinian
Dès
security
lors que la
forces.
négociation le
As soon
permettra,
as negotiations
le Conseil de
permit, the
sécurité
Security
pourra décider
Council
le déploiement
could
d'une mission
decide
de
to
soutien
deploy
civil et sécuritaire en
civilian
liaison
and security
avec les
support
autorités
mission,
palestiniennes,
liaising with the
avec le
Palestinian
consentement
authorities
des autorités
and with the
israéliennes.
consent of the Israeli authorities.
Il reviendra aussi à l'État de
Furthermore,
Palestine
it'll be up to
de
the
rendre
state of
espoir à sa
Palestine to give
population éprouvée
hope
par des années de
to its
violence,
people,
d'occupation,
tested by
mais
years
aussi
of
de division et
violence and
d'incurie.
occupation,
Il lui
division and
reviendra donc
negligence. It'll be
d'offrir à
up
son
to the
peuple
state of Palestine
un
to
cadre
give its
d'expression
people a
démocratique,
framework for democratic
renouvelé
expression,
et
a framework
sécurisé.
that's been renewed and that is
Le
secure.
président Mahmoud Abbas
President
en a
Mahmoud
pris
Abbas
l'engagement auprès du prince
committed to
Mohammed Ben
this
Salman
before Prince
et de
Mohammed
moi-même.
bin Salman and
Il a condamné avec
myself.
force les
He
attaques terroristes
forcefully
du 7
condemned
octobre
the terrorist attacks
2023.
committed on the
Il a
7th of October
affirmé son
2023.
soutien au
He
désarmement du
reiterated
Hamas
his commitment
et s'est
to disarming
engagé à
Hamas and
l'exclure de la
committed to
gouvernance à
excluding
venir de
Hamas
Gaza
from
comme de
future
l'ensemble
governance
du
in
territoire
Gaza as well
palestinien.
as from future
Il a
governance
affirmé
throughout
son engagement à
Palestinian
lutter
territory.
contre les
He
discours de haine
reaffirmed his
et a
commitment to
promis
combating
une
hate speech
rénovation en
and promised
profondeur de la
an
gouvernance
in-depth
palestinienne.
overhaul of Palestinian governance.
La France
France
sera
will play
attentive à la pleine
close
mise en œuvre
attention
de
to the
chacun des
full
engagements pris
implementation
auprès d'elle.
of
Cette
all of
autorité
the commitments
palestinienne
made to
renouvelée
us.
est une
This
condition
renewed Palestinian
nécessaire à la
authority
réussite
is
de
a
l'indispensable
necessary
négociation qu'il faudra
prerequisite
reprendre
for
pour
the
parvenir
success
à un
of the
accord sur
indispensable
chacune des questions
negotiations we'll need to
relatives au
resume to
statut
come to an
final.
agreement on each of the final status issues.
C'est dans ce cadre
It's
aussi
within this framework
que je pourrais
that
décider
I will
d'établir
be
une
able
ambassade
to
auprès de l'État de
decide
Palestine
to
dès lors
open
que tous les
an
otages détenus à Gaza
embassy
auront
to
été
the state of
libérés
Palestine
et
as
qu'un
soon as
cessez-le-feu
all of the
aura été
hostages
établi.
detained in Gaza have been freed
L'exigence de
and
la
a
France à
ceasefire
l'égard
has been
d'Israël
established.
ne sera pas moins
But
grande.
France will
Avec
be
ses
demanding
partenaires
of Israel
européens,
be just as considerable.
elle
Together with
indexera
our
le
European
niveau de sa
partners, we
coopération
will
avec
be
lui sur les
indexing,
dispositions qu'il prendra
pegging that is,
pour mettre
our
fin à la
level of
guerre et
cooperation with
négocier
Israel
la paix.
to the provisions, the
C'est bien
measures
grâce à
Israel will be
ce
taking to put
chemin
an end to the war
que
and
nous
negotiate peace.
obtiendrons
It's
un
thanks
État
to
de
this path
Palestine souverain,
that we will get a state of
indépendant
Palestine which
et
is sovereign,
démilitarisé,
independent and
regroupant l'ensemble de
demilitarized,
ses territoires,
bringing together all of its
reconnaissant
territories,
Israël
recognizing
et étant
Israel
reconnu
and
par
being
Israël
recognized by
dans une
Israel
région
in a
qui
region
connaîtra
which will
enfin la
at
paix.
last see peace reign upon it.
J'attends aussi de nos partenaires
What I
arabes et musulmans
also
qui n'ont
expect of
pas
our
encore
Arab
fait
and Muslim
qu'ils
partners who
tiennent leur
have not yet
engagement de
done so
reconnaître
is for
l'État
them to
d'Israël
uphold their commitment
et
to
d'avoir
recognize the
avec
state
lui
of
des
Israel
relations
and to
normales
engage with
dès
Israel
lors que
in
l'État de Palestine
normal
aura été
relations as
établi.
soon as the state of Palestine has
Ainsi
been established.
ferons-nous ensemble la
In so
démonstration
doing,
d'une double
together we will
reconnaissance au
demonstrate
bénéfice
dual
de la
recognition
paix
for the benefit
et de
of
la
peace
sécurité
and
de tous
security
au
of
Proche-Orient.
all in the Middle East.
Voici, mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen,
quel est notre plan de
this
paix.
is our peace plan.
Il établit un engrenage
establishes
exigeant pour
A
sortir de la
demanding
guerre
mechanism
et entrer dans
to
une phase
end
décisive
the war
de négociation.
and enter into
Il
the
permet que la
negotiations
paix
phase. It
israélo-palestinienne soit le
allows
premier
for
pilier d'une
Israeli-Palestinian
nouvelle
peace to
architecture
be
de
the
paix
first
et de
pillar of a new
sécurité
peace and security
au Proche et
architecture
Moyen-Orient.
in the Near East and the Middle East.
Il
It
crédibilise
lends
aussi
credibility
la
to
possibilité
the
d'une plus grande
possibility
intégration
of
économique.
further economic
Rien
integration.
ne sera possible sans que les autorités israéliennes
Nothing will be
s'approprient
possible
pleinement notre
unless
ambition
the
renouvelée
Palestinian
de
authorities
parvenir enfin
take full
à la
ownership
solution
of our
des deux
renewed
États.
ambition so that we can at
Je sais
last
leur
achieve
réticence
the two-state solution.
et leur
I know that
crainte.
they are reluctant. I know that they harbor
J'entends
fears.
avec beaucoup de respect le
And
peuple
with the
israélien,
utmost
sa
respect, I hear
tristesse et sa
the Israeli
fatigue.
people.
Et je veux croire que les autorités israéliennes
sadness,
l'entendront
their fatigue.
également
But I
et
want
sauront
for the
s'engager à
Israeli
leur tour.
authorities to also hear this
Je
and
sais que
to
le
in turn
peuple
take on
israélien et
commitments.
ses dirigeants
I know that the Israeli people
peuvent
and
en
the
avoir
Israeli
la force.
leadership have the strength to do
Je me
this.
souviens du jeune homme que j'étais,
I remember when I
apprenant
was a young
l'assassinat
man,
terrible
when I learned
d'Yitzhak
of the
Rabin,
horrible assassination of Yitzhak Rabin,
il y a près de 30 ans,
almost 30 years ago.
tué pour avoir voulu la paix.
He was killed for
Au moment où la mort
wanting
allait le
peace.
ravir, le guerrier
When death
héroïque
was
de
about
l'État
to
d'Israël
claim him,
venait
the
prononcer ces
heroic
mots.
warrior of the state of Israel
J'ai fait la guerre
said,
aussi
and I
longtemps
quote,
qu'il
I
n'y avait
fought
aucune chance.
so long as
de
there was
faire la
no chance of peace. End of quote.
Cette chance existe.
But
là,
today, there is such a
aujourd'hui.
chance. Today,
142 États proposent cette paix,
142 states
main
are
tendue, prête
proposing
à être
this
serrée.
peace. They're
Alors
extending
oui,
out their hands,
le
ready
temps
to
est
be
venu
shaken.
d'arrêter
So yes,
la guerre à
the time
Gaza,
has come
les
to put an end to the
massacres,
war
la
in
mort,
Gaza.
tout de
Massacres,
suite.
death,
L'urgence
right
nous le
now.
commande. Le temps est venu pour
Urgency
Israël de vivre en paix et en
is what drives
sécurité.
us. The time
De
has
la
come
Galilée à la
for
mer
Israel
Rouge,
to live
par
in
la
peace and
mer Morte,
security,
par
from
le
the
lac de
Galilee
Tibériade et par
to the Red
Jérusalem.
Sea, through the
Le
Dead
temps est
Sea and
venu
the
de ne
Lake
plus
of
discuter
Tiberias
nulle
and
part
Jerusalem. The
l'existence
time has come
d'un
to no
État
longer
d'Israël et d'en faire une
no
évidence.
longer talk about the existence
Le
of the
temps
state
est
of
venu
Israel. It's
de rendre
self-evident.
justice
The
au
time has
peuple
come to do
palestinien
justice to the
et
Palestinian people
ainsi de
and thus to
reconnaître un
recognize
État
the
de
state of
Palestine,
Palestine,
frère et voisin, à
brotherly
Gaza
country
et en
and neighbor
Cisjordanie
in
et
Gaza
par
and the West Bank
Jérusalem.
and in Jerusalem.
Le temps est venu
The time has come
de chasser de ces
to
terres le
cast out
visage hideux du
from
terrorisme
these
et de
lands the
bâtir
vile
la
face
paix.
of terrorism
Oui,
and to forge peace.
bâtir la
Yes,
paix.
to
C'est
forge
ce qui nous
peace.
rassemble
This
ici.
is what has
Et
brought
telle est
us here
l'espérance
today.
qui peut se construire.
And we're very
Alors que pour
hopeful that
certains
we will
commence
be
une
able
année nouvelle.
to forge it.
C'est un choix à faire
It is a choice we
et
must
c'est
make.
notre devoir.
It is our duty.
La paix est beaucoup plus exigeante,
Peace
beaucoup
is
plus
much more
difficile.
difficult. It demands
que toutes
much
les
more of
guerres.
us than all wars.
Mais le temps est venu.
The time has come.
Merci pour votre attention.
Thank you
Je
for your
donne à
kind
présent la
attention.
parole
I
à Son
now
Altesse le Prince
invite
Faisal
His
bin Farhan
Royal
Al Saoud,
Highness,
ministre des Affaires étrangères d'Arabie
Minister
Saoudite,
of Foreign Affairs
au nom de Son
of Saudi
Altesse
Arabia.
royale le Prince
He will
Mohammed
be
bin
speaking
Salman
on
bin
behalf of His
Abdulaziz
Royal
Al
Highness
Saoud,
Prince Mohammed
Prince
bin Salman
héritier et
bin
Premier ministre du
Abdulaziz
Royaume
Al
d'Arabie
Saoud,
Saoudite.
Crown Prince and Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة رئيس الجمهورية الفرنسية، معالي الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة، معالي رئيسة الجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة، الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أتشرف بإلقاء كلمة المملكة العربية السعودية كرئيس مشارك في المؤتمر نيابة عن صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير محمد بن سلمان آل سعود ولي العهد رئيس مجلس الوزراء حفظه الله. ويطيب لي أن أنقل لكم تحيات سيدي خادم الحرمين الشريفين الملك سلمان بن عبد العزيز آل سعود حفظه الله وسموه الكريم وتمنياتهما بنجاح أعمال هذا المؤتمر. ونود نشكر فخامة الرئيس مانويل ماكرون ومعالي السيد أنطونيو غوتيريش ومعالي رئيس الجمعية العامة على جهودهم لإنجاح المؤتمر الذي يشكل فرصة تاريخية نحو تحقيق السلام وتأكيد الالتزام الدولي بتنفيذ حل الدولتين. الحضور الكرام، ينعقد هذا المؤتمر برئاسة مشتركة بين المملكة العربية السعودية والجمهورية الفرنسية في ظل استمرار سلطات الاحتلال الإسرائيلية في نهجها العدواني ومواصلتها لجرائمها الوحشية تجاه الأشقاء الفلسطينيين في قطاع غزة وانتهاكاتها في الضفة الغربية والقدس الشريف واعتداءاتها المتكررة على سيادة الدول العربية والإسلامية وآخرها العدوان الغاشم الذي استهدف دولة قطر الشقيقة وهو ما يؤكد معاني إسرائيل في ممارستها العدوانية التي تهدد الأمن والاستقرار الإقليمي والدولي وتقوض جهود السلام في المنطقة ويعزز اقتناعنا الراسخ أن تنفيذ حل الدولتين هو السبيل الوحيد لتحقيق السلام العادل والدائم في المنطقة. حضور الكرام،
implementation
إن
of the
الموقف
two-state solution
التاريخي
is the only
لفخامة
way
الرئيس
to achieve
الفرنسي
just and
بالاعتراف بدولة
permanent
فلسطين
peace. The
واتخاذ العديد من
historic
الدول لهذا
position of
الموقف
His
الشجاع
Excellency, the French President, to
والتأييد
recognize the state of
الدولي الواسع
Palestine, and the
لقرار
fact that many
جمعية
countries
العامة
have
للأمم
taken the
المتحدة اعتماد إعلان
similar
نيويورك
courageous position
بشأن تسوية
and the
قضية فلسطين
broad
بالوسائل
support
السلمية
for the resolution
وتنفيذ
of the
حل
General
الدولتين
Assembly to
الذي
adopt
صوت لصالحه
the declaration, the New York
142 دولة
Declaration on the peaceful settlement of the
يعكس
question of
إرادة المجتمع
Palestine
الدولي
and the implementation of the
في إنصاف
two-state
الشعب
solution
الفلسطيني
that received
وترسيخ حقه
142 votes in
التاريخي
its favor
والقانوني
reflects the will
وفق
of the
المرجعيات
international
الدولية
community
والقرارات
to render
الأممية
justice
ذات
to the
الصلة
Palestinian people
ومبادرة
and
السلام
consolidate
والعرب.
their legal historic right in
الحضور
line
الكرام.
with international frameworks
إن المملكة
relevant to
عازمة على
resolutions
مواصلة
and the Arab peace
شراكاتها مع
initiatives.
الجمهورية الفرنسية
The
وجميع
kingdom
الدول
is keen on
الداعية
continuing
للسلام
its partnership
في
with
سبيل متابعة
France
تنفيذ
and all
مخرجات هذا
countries calling
المؤتمر
for peace to follow
لوضع
up on
حد
the
للحرب
implementation
في
of the
غزة
outcomes of this
ووقف
conference
جميع
to
الإجراءات
put an end
الأحادية
to the war in Gaza
التي
and stop
تهدد
all
السيادة
unilateral
الفلسطينية
measures that threaten
والعمل على إنهاء
Palestinian
الصراع في
sovereignty,
المنطقة
to work on
وتجسيد
ending the
الدولة
conflict in the
الفلسطينية
region
المستقلة
and
على
establish the
حدود عام
Palestinian independent state on the
1967 وعاصمتها القدس
1967
الشرقية.
borders with
وفي
East
الختام
Jerusalem as its capital. In
نجدد شكرنا
conclusion,
للدول التي
we
اعترفت
thank
أو
again
أعلنت
those
عزم
countries
الاعتراف
that
بالدولة
have recognized
الفلسطينية
or have announced
وندعو
their
بقية
intention to
الدول
recognize the state
لاتخاذ
of
هذه
Palestine.
الخطوة
We call
التاريخية
all other countries to
التي
take a
سيكون لها
similar
بالغ الأثر
historic
في
step
دعم
that
الجهود
will have
باتجاه
a great
تنفيذ حل
impact on
الدولتين
supporting the efforts towards the
وتحقيق
implementation of
السلام
the two-state
الدائم
solution,
والشامل في منطقة
achieve
الشرق
permanent
الأوسط
and comprehensive peace in
وإيجاد
the
واقع
Middle East
جديد
and
تنعم
find a
فيه
new
المنطقة
reality
بالأمن
whereby the
والاستقرار
region
والازدهار.
can
والسلام
enjoy
عليكم ورحمة
peace,
الله
stability
وبركاته.
and prosperity. Thank you.
Je remercie Son
I
Altesse le Prince
thank
Faisal bin Farhan Al Saoud.
His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin
J'invite à
Salman
présent Son
Abdulaziz
Excellence Monsieur
Al
Antonio Guterres,
Saud. I now invite His
Secrétaire
Excellency
général de
Mr. Antonio
l'Organisation des
Guterres,
Nations
Secretary
Unies,
General of the United
à
Nations
faire une
Organization,
déclaration.
to issue a statement.
Distinguished co-chairs, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the government of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening this international conference on implementing the two-state solution. I also want to acknowledge the Palestinian delegation and once again note my disappointment that they were denied the opportunity to be fully represented. Excellencies, let's have no illusions. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has gone unresolved for generations. Dialogue has faltered. Resolutions have been flouted. International law has been breached. Decades of diplomacy have come up short. The situation is intolerable and it is deteriorating by the hour. We are here today to help navigate the only way out of this nightmare, a two-state solution, where two independent, sovereign, democratic states, Israel and Palestine, live side by side in peace and security with their secure and recognized borders on the basis of pre-1967 lines, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states, in line with international law, UN resolutions, and other relevant agreements. I welcome the measures many member states are taking to galvanize support for the two-state solution, including the pledges to recognize the state of Palestine. And I welcome the General Assembly's endorsement of the New York Declaration. Excellencies, nothing can justify the horrific 7 October terror attacks by Hamas or the taking of hostages, both of which I have repeatedly condemned. And nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people or any form of ethnic cleansing. The systematic decimation of Gaza, the starvation of the population, the killing of tens of thousands of civilians, most of them women and children, and hundreds of our own humanitarians. I call once again for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, and the immediate, full, safe, unconditional, and unhindered humanitarian access. Excellencies, nothing can also excuse developments in the West Bank that pose an existential threat to a two-state solution. The relentless expansion of settlements, the creeping threat of annexation, the intensification of settler violence, all of it must stop. The situation is morally, legally, and politically intolerable. We must recommit ourselves to the two-state solution before it is too late. A solution in which two independent, contiguous, democratic, viable, and sovereign states are mutually recognized and fully integrated into the international community. Excellencies, those who stand in the way are obligated to answer a fundamental question. What is the alternative? A one-state scenario where Palestinians are denied basic rights, expelled from their homes and their land, forced to live under perpetual occupation, discrimination, and subjugation? How is this possible in the 21st century? How is it acceptable? This is neither peace nor justice. It will only increase the growing isolation of Israel on the global stage, and let's be clear, statehood for the Palestinians is a right, not a reward. And denying statehood would be a gift to extremists everywhere. Without two states, there will be no peace in the Middle East, and radicalism will spread around the world. Excellencies,
this conference must mark a turning point. It must pave the way for irreversible progress, to put an end to the illegal occupation and to make good on our collective aspiration for a two-state solution. All of this is fully in line with adherence to international law. It has been approved by the General Assembly and supported by the international community. It is the only credible path towards a just and lasting peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and the only credible path towards peace and security throughout the Middle East as a whole. This will demand difficult decisions be taken from us all. This will demand courage and leadership based on principles from all sides. I urge you to do everything in your power to allow the two-state solution to prevail. This for the people of Israel, Palestine, and for humankind as a whole. I thank you.
I
thank the Secretary General of the United Nations Organization. I now invite Her Excellency Annalena Baerbock, President of the General Assembly, to make a statement.
Your Excellency President Emmanuel Macron, Your Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Your Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies. Taking over the presidency of the General Assembly, I received many letters. One moved me deeply. Attached to it were drawings by 3 Palestinian children, Rimas, Enas, and Tretal. The images were heartbreaking. One showed a school before and after, beneath a bright sun and a blue, clear sky. In the first, the school with open doors, and happiness. In the second, their school lies in rubble. A lone boy stands on the debris of what must be once have been his safe place. Perhaps he had a favorite class, a favorite teacher, like our children, a best friend he played with there. Now, all of it is gone. All of the laughter of the children blown away. At that age, children should not be drawing pictures of war. Children should be learning mathematics. They should be playing with friends and scratch dragons or castles, not death and destruction. Yet, for the children of Gaza, this is their reality. Their horror lasted and lasts for over 700 days. Tens of thousands have lost their lives. Tens of thousands of dreams which never will come true. So many killed without the world even learning their names. Until we heard one voice so loud we could not overhear it. The voice of Hind Rajab, captured in a phone call with a red crescent while shelling rained down. After the car she was in was attacked, over and over again, killing her aunt, uncle, and 3 of her cousins next to her. She called over and over again, "I'm so scared, please come." The rescuers tried to calm her as they tried to reach her. They could not. Hind was killed before help arrived. The world failed her. As the world has also failed Kfir Abbas and his brother Ayel. Kfir was just 9 months old, the youngest child abducted by Hamas on October 7th, taken with his 4-year-old brother Ayel and their mother. Both were killed in Gaza by terrorists. The world will remember their names as symbols of innocent childhood stolen by terror. I've met with the families of the hostages, fathers, mothers, siblings, aunts, grandparents, still waiting for their loved ones to come home from wherever Hamas is holding them after more than 700 days. I've also met with Palestinian families, fathers, mothers, siblings, aunts, and grandparents whose loved ones are buried in the ruins of Gaza. Their message is always the same: we want peace. Or as one Israeli mother told me, it does not bring my child back if a Palestinian mother loses her child in Gaza. Humanity is not about choosing sides. It's about recognizing that every life matters the same. A life is a life. A Palestinian girl's life is a life. An Israeli boy's life is a life. All the children of the Middle East deserve to grow up knowing only the sun shining on their schools, the laughter of their friends in the playground, and the joy of a meal shared with their families. Not the horrors of starvation, not the horrors of war and terror. Excellencies, the General Assembly has been very clear. We need an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in Gaza now. Israel must immediately facilitate the full, rapid, safe, and unhindered entry and delivery of humanitarian assistance to all Palestinian civilians. Hamas must immediately and unconditionally release all remaining hostages. But the horrors of Gaza make equally clear that we cannot allow such devastation to happen again. While the situation in Gaza is unacceptable, settlement expansions and demolitions in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, are eroding any prospects for a political solution. The decade-long Israeli-Palestinian conflict cannot be resolved by endless war, permanent occupation, and recurrent terror. The only way to ensure that future generations of both Palestinians and Israelis can live in peace, security, and dignity is the two-state solution. As the Secretary General said, it's a right, not a reward, to live in your own state, as all humans around the world. We know that some think this is naive. The first resolution on this matter is almost as old as this organization. 78 years ago, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 181, laying the foundation for two states, knowing it's the only way for peace. And to those of you who argue now, but we have tried for decades and failed over and over again, there can be only one answer. If we would stop aiming for what is right because we have not succeeded yet, then evil would prevail. That would be the end of this institution. This institution which promised to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. It would erode the UN's foundational mission to achieve peace, justice, and equal rights for both Israelis and Palestinians. Excellencies, that is what today's conference and the New York Declaration are so crucial. The message we are sending today is no, we are not giving up. The international community does not only remain committed to the two-state solution, we are also identifying tangible, time-bound, and irreversible steps for its realization. And we are willing to take decisive measures and provide international guarantees. Of course, this conference and the New York Declaration will face criticism. Some will say a piece of paper cannot change realities on the grounds for Palestinians. Others will dismiss the vision of two states outright. But the fact remains, the New York Declaration was endorsed by 142 member states. And this majority clearly says the war in Gaza must end now. It condemns the attacks committed by Hamas against civilians on 7th of October. It condemns the attacks by Israel against civilians and civilian infrastructure in Gaza. It calls on Hamas to end its rule in Gaza and hand over its weapons. A sovereign and viable state of Palestine needs to be established, living side by side with the state of Israel in peace and security, with mutually recognized borders and full regional integration. Excellencies, the call for peace and the two-state solution is not an abstract. Not for the children watching missiles destroy their school. Not for the families waiting for news that their sons and daughters might be released from captivity. Not for the UN staff in Gaza who have witnessed their colleagues shot. Not for those who have been injured or maimed and will have to live with the trauma of this conflict for the rest of their life. It's an aspiration, but it's also an obligation. We owe it to the memory of Fint, Kriya, and Ariel, and the many, many others. And we owe it to the children like Rimas, Enas, and Rital, and all the children of Palestine and all the children of Israel, hoping for a better tomorrow, so that they may not inherit rubble, grief, and despair, but safety, dignity, and hope, to live one day in peace, side by side.
Je remercie Madame la Présidente
I thank
de l'Assemblée
the
Générale.
President of the General Assembly.
J'invite à présent Son
And now
Excellence Monsieur
invite
Mahmoud
His
Abbas, Président de
Excellency
l'État de
Mahmoud
Palestine,
Abbas,
à faire sa
President of the
déclaration
State
par
of Palestine,
visioconférence.
to deliver a statement via video conference.
شكرا. بسم الله الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس إيمانويل ماكرون.
Your Excellency, President
صاحب
Emmanuel
السمو
Macron,
الملكي الأمير محمد بن
Your
سلمان
Royal
آل
Highness
سعود.
Prince Mohammed bin Salman
سمو
Al Saud,
الأمير فيصل بن فرحان وزير خارجية
Your Highness
السعودية.
Prince Saud
معالي
Faisal
الأمين
bin
العام
Farhan, Minister of
للأمم
Foreign Affairs, Your
المتحدة
Excellency
أنطونيو غوتيريس.
Antonio Guterres, the
القادة
Secretary General of the
ورؤساء
United
الوفود
Nations,
الكرام.
distinguished
السلام
leaders and
عليكم
heads of
ورحمة
delegations,
الله
peace, mercy,
وبركاته.
and blessings of God be upon you.
أعبر باسم دولة
On behalf
فلسطين
of the State of
عن بالغ
Palestine,
التقدير
I would like to
للرئاسة
express my
المشتركة
deepest appreciation
وللأمم
for the
المتحدة
co-presidency,
ولكل الدول
the United
المشاركة
Nations, and
على
all
ما صدر عن
participating
مؤتمر
states
يوليو من إعلان
for the
نيويورك
historic New
التاريخي
York
الذي
Declaration
أقرته
that was
الجمعية
issued
العامة
during July's
بأغلبية
conference
ساحقة
and adopted by the
إذانا
General Assembly
ببدء
by an
خطوات لا
overwhelming
رجعة
majority.
عنها
It marked the
لإنهاء
beginning of an
الكارثة
irreversible path
الإنسانية
towards ending
وإنهاء
the
الاحتلال
humanitarian
وفق
catastrophe
الشرعية
and
الدولية
ending occupation,
ومبادرة
pursuing
السلام
to international
العربية
legitimacy and the
وتجسيد
Arab
دولة
Peace
فلسطين
Initiative. It was
المستقلة
the embodiment of an
بعاصمتها
independent
القدس
state of
الشرقية
Palestine
إلى
with
جانب
East Jerusalem
دولة
as its capital,
إسرائيل
living
في
side by
أمن
side with
وسلام
Israel in peace,
وحسن جوار.
security, and good neighborliness.
لقد أكد الإعلان
The
أن
declaration
الحرب على
stressed
شعبنا
that the war
يجب
against
أن
our people
تتوقف
must
فوراً
come to an
وبشكل
immediate
مستدام
and durable end.
وأن جرائم الحصار
It noted that the
والتجويع
crimes
والتدمير
emanating from the siege, the
يمكن أن
starvation, and
تكون
destruction
وسيلة
cannot be
لتحقيق
a means
الأمن.
of achieving
لذلك
security.
نطالب بوقف
Therefore,
دائم
we call
لإطلاق
for a
النار
permanent
وضمان
ceasefire.
إدخال المساعدات
We need to
الإنسانية
ensure
عبر
humanitarian
الأمم
access
المتحدة
through the United Nations and UNRWA.
والإفراج عن
We need to
الرهائن
guarantee the
والأسرى
release of
جميعا
hostages, all
وانسحاب
hostages
قوات
and prisoners,
الاحتلال من غزة
with the withdrawal of the occupation
والبدء
forces
بإعادة
from Gaza.
الإعمار دون
We need a
تأخير
start
في
without
غزة
delay
والضفة
of Gaza
الغربية
and the West Bank
من خلال
reconstruction
المؤتمر
through
الدولي
the
في
Cairo
القاهرة.
International Conference.
ونشيد أيها السيدات والسادة
Your Excellencies, ladies and
بدور
gentlemen,
الوساطة
we would
المصرية
like to
القطرية
commend
الأمريكية
the
التي
Egyptian
تسعى
Qatari
لوقف
US
الحرب
mediation that tries to put an end to this
مواقف
war.
كل من
We
مصر
also commend the
والأردن
positions
من
of
رفض
Egypt and
التهجير
Jordan
تهجير
who
الفلسطينيين
reject the
الذي
displacement
يرفضه
of
المجتمع
Palestinians,
الدولي
a matter
معنا.
rejected by the
إن
international
دولة
community as
فلسطين
well.
هي الجهة
The state of
الوحيدة
Palestine is the
المؤهلة
only entity
لتحمل المسؤولية
eligible to
الكاملة عن
assume
الحكم
full
والأمن في
responsibility
غزة
for
عبر
governance
لجنة
and security
إدارية
in Gaza.
مؤقتة
This comes through an
مرتبطة
interim
بالحكومة
administrative committee
الفلسطينية
affiliated
بالضفة
to the
الغربية
Palestinian government in
وبدعم
the West Bank
ومشاركة
with
عربية ودولية.
Arab and international support and participation.
لن يكون لحماس دور في الحكم.
Hamas will have no role in government.
وعليها وغيرها
Hamas
من
and other
الفصائل
factions
تسليم السلاح
must
للسلطة
surrender their
الفلسطينية.
weapons to the Palestinian
لأننا
Authority.
نريد دولة
What we
واحدة
want
غير
is
مسلحة
one unified state
وقانونا
without
واحدا
weapons, a state
وقوات
with
أمن
one law
شرعية
and one
واحدة
legitimate
ونؤكد إدانتنا لجرائم
security
الاحتلال
forces.
كما
We stress
ندين
our
القتل
condemnation of
وأسر
the occupation's
المدنيين
crimes. We also
بما في
condemn the
ذلك
killing and
ما
detention of
قامت به
civilians,
حماس
including
في السابع من
Hamas's
أكتوبر
actions on October the 7th,
2023.
2023.
في المقابل
On the other hand, we call for an end to the settlements, the annexation, settlers' terrorism, and the attacks against Islamic and Christian holy sites. We condemn the occupation policies that isolate Jerusalem and expand construction on Area 1. We condemn the narrative, the Israeli narrative on Greater Israel, which flouts international law. It represents a direct threat to Arab national security and international peace. This comes in addition to the brutal aggression against the sovereignty of the brotherly state of Qatar and other Arab countries. This necessitates a firm, deterrent international stance. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of Palestine continues to adopt a comprehensive reform agenda promoting governance, transparency, the rule of law, and the reform of the financial system. It also works on the reform of educational curriculum in line with UNESCO's standards, and this will be achieved within 2 years. We're establishing a unified social welfare system after the abolition of all previous payments to the families of prisoners and martyrs. This system is currently undergoing international audit by a specialized international firm. We underline our commitment to organize presidential and parliamentary elections after the end of the war. And within 1 year, we will draft an interim constitution within 3 months to ensure the transfer of power from the authority to the state. This will ensure that no party or individual will participate unless they adhere to the political program and the international commitments of the Palestine Liberation Organization and the rules of international legitimacy. The elections will be held under international observance. Ladies and gentlemen, we desire a modern democratic state based on the rule of law, pluralism, power sharing, equality, justice, and the empowerment of women and youth. We commend the positions of those countries that recognize the state of Palestine. We call on those who have not yet done so to follow suit. We call for your support so that Palestine become a full-fledged member of the United Nations. We have already recognized the right of Israel to existence in 1988 and in 1993, and we still recognize the state of Israel. In this vein, I would like to thank France, Britain, Canada, Australia, and Belgium, in addition to Portugal, Luxembourg, San Marino, and Andorra, and other countries that have been mentioned by His Excellency the President of France. And we recall with appreciation all 149 countries who have already recognized the state of Palestine earlier. They have participated in our long struggle, the last of which was Spain, Ireland, Norway, Slovenia, and Armenia. We would also like to commend the important role of the presidency of this conference, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France, as well as Britain, in galvanizing more international recognition. We would also like to thank all participating countries in this conference for their important role issuing the New York Declaration and taking irreversible steps to bring about durable peace based on the two-state solution and based on international legitimacy. We would also like to commend the role of the brotherly and friendly countries that support our Palestinian cause in international fora. We would like to commend in particular the role of Algeria, which is assuming the Arab seat in the Security Council. We commend the positions of the peoples and organizations that support the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people to freedom, independence, and statehood. We reject any confusion, I repeat, any confusion between the solidarity with the Palestinian cause and the issue of anti-Semitism. We reject the latter, proceeding from our values and principles. We would also like to express our readiness to work with the U.S. President Donald Trump, with Saudi Arabia, France, and the United Nations and all partners to implement the peace plan adopted during this conference within a specific timetable with international guarantees and monitoring. This would open the gates towards a just peace and comprehensive regional cooperation. In this regard, I call upon Israel to immediately sit on the negotiating table to put an end to this bloodshed and bring about just and comprehensive peace. And I address the Israeli people saying, our future and yours banks on peace. Enough violence and war. Our generations deserve to enjoy freedom and security. Let the people in our region live in durable peace and good neighborliness. And I would like to seize this opportunity to address all the Jews in the world, wishing them a good New Year. And to our patient Palestinian people in their homeland and everywhere, I would like to tell you that the dawn of freedom and liberty is coming, no doubt. That day, ladies and gentlemen, is the day of the state of Palestine and the start of the peace process in the Middle East. We hope that we will call very soon to an international conference that will bring about this matter. Peace and blessings of God be upon you.
Je remercie le président de l'État de Palestine.
The President of the State of Palestine.
Excellences, Mesdames les représentantes, Messieurs les représentants.
Distinguished
Avant de
representatives,
suspendre la
before
séance, nous vous demandons de bien vouloir
the
rester
formal
assis pour la
proceedings
suite
of
du
the
programme de
conference,
cet
we
après-midi.
would ask you to kindly remain seated for
La
the
séance
next part of this
est suspendue.
afternoon's program. This meeting is suspended.
Nous allons à présent entendre les déclarations des chefs
now
d'État et de
listen to
gouvernement,
statements made by
y
heads of
compris
state and government,
celles des coprésidents des groupes de
including by the
travail au cours
co-chairs of
desquels
the
ils vont
working
présenter
groups.
les
They
efforts
will
concrets
present
déployés dans la mise en
tangible
œuvre de la
efforts made
déclaration
to
de New York.
implement the New York
Je
Declaration.
rappelle que cette Assemblée a
I
endossé la déclaration de New York
remind you
avec
that
une large
this assembly
majorité
endorsed the New York
140 de voix.
Declaration by
Il
a
est
vast
rappelé aux
majority to the
délégations
tune
que
of
les déclarations
120
sont
to
limitées à
140.
Batı Şeria'daki yayılmacılığı, Doğu Kudüs'teki oldu bittileri ve bölgede istikrarsızlığı yayma girişimlerini durdurmak zorundadır. Aksi takdirde ne bir uluslararası düzenden ne de evrensel değerlerin savunulmasından söz edilebilir. Derinleşen işgal ve ilhak politikalarının hedefi açıktır. İki devletli çözüm vizyonunu öldürmek, Filistin devletinin yaşayabileceği zemin bırakmamak, Filistin halkını sürgün etmek ve bölgede yayılmacı emellerini hayata geçirmek, buna asla izin verilemez. Bu konferansta Filistin devletini tanıma cesaretini gösteren ülkelerin kararlı, somut ve caydırıcı adımlarla bu tarihi duruşun arkasını doldurmalarını temenni ediyorum. Artık ateşkesin ilanı, Gazze'ye insani yardımların engelsiz şekilde girişinin sağlanması ve İsrail'in Gazze'den güçlerini çekmesi gerekiyor.
Je remercie le président de la Turquie. Je donne maintenant la parole au président du Brésil.
Eu quero cumprimentar o presidente Emmanuel Macron e o primeiro-ministro Mohamed bin Salman por liderarem este importante evento. A questão da Palestina surgiu no momento em que a Assembleia Geral adotou o chamado Plano de Partilha há 78 anos atrás. A sessão em que ele foi aprovado foi presidida pelo brasileiro Oswaldo Aranha. Naquela ocasião, nasceu a perspectiva de 2 estados, mas só um se materializou. O conflito entre Israel e Palestina é símbolo maior dos obstáculos enfrentados pelo multilateralismo. Ele mostra que a tirania do veto sabota a própria razão de ser da ONU, de evitar que atrocidades como as que motivaram sua fundação se repitam. também vai contra sua vocação universal, bloqueando a admissão como membro pleno de um Estado cuja criação deriva da autoridade da própria Assembleia Geral. Um Estado se assenta sobre 3 pilares: o território, a população e o governo. Todos têm sido sistematicamente solapados no caso palestino. Como falar em território diante de uma ocupação ilegal que cresce a cada novo assentamento? Como manter uma população diante da limpeza étnica a que assistimos em tempo real? E como construir um governo sem empoderar a autoridade palestina? Como apontou a Comissão de Inquérito sobre os Territórios Palestinos Ocupados, não há palavra mais apropriada para descrever o que está ocorrendo em Gaza do que genocídio. Por isso, o Brasil decidiu tornar-se parte do caso apresentado pela África do Sul à Corte Internacional de Justiça. Os atos terroristas cometidos pelo Hamas são inaceitáveis. O Brasil foi enfático ao condená-los. Mas o direito de defesa não autoriza a matança indiscriminada de civis. Nada justifica tirar a vida ou mutilar mais de 50 mil crianças. Nada justifica destruir 90% dos lares palestinos. Nada justifica usar a fome como arma de guerra, nem alvejar pessoas famintas em busca de ajuda. 500 mil de palestinos não têm comida suficiente, mais do que a população de Miami ou de Tel Aviv. A fome não aflige apenas o corpo, ela estilhaça a alma. O que está acontecendo em Gaza não é só o extermínio do povo palestino, mas uma tentativa de aniquilamento de seu sonho de nação. Tanto Israel quanto a Palestina têm o direito de existir. Trabalhar para efetivar o Estado palestino é corrigir uma assimetria que compromete o diálogo e obstrui a paz. Saudamos os países que reconheceram a Palestina, como o Brasil fez em 2010. Já somos a imensa maioria dos 193 membros da ONU. O Brasil se compromete a reforçar o controle sobre importações de assentamentos ilegais na Cisjordânia e manter suspensas as exportações de material de defesa, inclusive de uso dual, que possam ser usados em crimes contra a humanidade e genocídio. Diante da omissão do Conselho de Segurança, a Assembleia Geral precisa exercer sua responsabilidade. Apoiamos a criação de um órgão inspirado no Comitê Especial contra o Apartheid, que teve um papel central no fim do regime de segregação racial sul-africano. Assegurar o diálogo de autodeterminação da Palestina é um ato de justiça e um passo essencial para restituir a força do multilateralismo e recobrar nosso sentido coletivo de humanidade. Muito obrigado.
Je remercie le président du Brésil. Je donne à présent la parole au président du Portugal.
Madam President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, Monsieur le Président de la République française, His Highness the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Mr. President of the Palestinian State, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Portugal formally recognized the State of Palestine as a sovereign state with full rights. This decision This decision reflects our conviction that the two-state solution is the only viable path for a just and lasting peace in the Middle East. By reaffirming it here, Portugal seeks to contribute to a broader international effort towards peace, justice, and stability. If we do not act, the crisis will leave scars for generations, fueling extremism and further instability. So, humanitarian access must be ensured without delay. All hostages must be released. Terrorism like October the 7th can never be justified. And civilians, regardless of nationality, religion, or ethnicity, must be protected at all times. And therefore, a ceasefire must be attained immediately. Portugal's commitment to peace in the Middle East has been constant and clear. We have always defended the two-state solution in line with the United Nations resolutions and the 67 borders. We supported Palestine's observer status in 2012, voted to enlarge its rights in the Assembly in 2024, and endorsed the New York Declaration earlier this year. We welcome the unprecedented commitments made by the Palestinian Authority in the context of the New York Declaration. We recognize that both countries continue to face security threats, which must be addressed through dialogue, cooperation, and the pursuit of a just and lasting peace. Portugal's recognition of the State of Palestine is not an isolated gesture, but a continuation of a long-standing policy and a decisive contribution to the safeguarding of the two-state solution. Excellencies, Portugal stands ready to work actively towards this collective endeavor. Our message is clear. Recognition of the State of Palestine is recognition of peace itself. Now, today, tomorrow would have been too late. Thank you.
His Excellency President Emmanuel Macron, President of the French Republic, His Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as the co-chairs of this distinguished meeting. Co-chairs, Excellencies, distinguished representatives of the United Nations, I wish to extend our deepest appreciation and highest regards to the governments of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their leadership in convening this important deliberation. It is with a heavy heart that we recall the ongoing unbearable tragedy in Gaza. Thousands of innocent lives, many of them women and children, have been killed. Famine looms. Human catastrophe is unfolding with our eyes. We condemn all acts of violence against innocent civilians. Therefore, it is today with dignity that we gather to take our historical responsibility. This responsibility speaks not only to the fate of Palestine, but also to the future of Israel, and also the very credibility of the United Nations. We condemn all violence against innocent civilians. Therefore, Indonesia once again reiterates its commitment to the two-state solution in the Palestine problem. Only this two-state solution will lead to peace. We must guarantee statehood for Palestine, but Indonesia also declares that once Israel recognizes the independence and the statehood of Palestine, Indonesia will immediately recognize the state of Israel, and we will support all guarantees for the security of Israel. The New York Declaration has provided a peaceful and just pathway towards peace. Statehood must mean peace. Recognition must mean a real chance towards lasting peace. It must be a real peace for all sides, for all parties. Distinguished Excellencies, we commend the leading states of the world that have taken this principled step. France, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, Portugal, and many other leading countries of the world have taken a step on the right side of history. The recognition of the state of Palestine is the right step on the right side of history. To those who have yet to act, we say, history does not stand still. We must recognize Palestine now. We must stop the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Ending the war must be our utmost priority. We must overcome hatred, fear. We must overcome suspicion. We must achieve the peace that is necessary for the human family. We are ready to take our part in this journey towards peace. We are willing to provide peacekeeping forces part in this journey towards peace. We are willing to provide peacekeeping forces Thank you very much. Peace. Peace now. Peace immediately. We need peace. Thank you very much.
Je remercie le président de l'Indonésie. Je donne à présent la parole au président du Sénégal.
le discours qu'ils n'ont pas déposé.
Monsieur le coprésident, chers collègues, Monsieur le secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Mesdames, Messieurs, je salue le leadership de la France et de l'Arabie Saoudite, ainsi que l'engagement de tous ici présents pour la cause palestinienne. Cette conférence se tient au moment où la conscience universelle est profondément bouleversée par la situation insoutenable à Gaza, une situation qui a dépassé toutes les limites. Nous assistons à une tragédie indescriptible, aux allures d'un nettoyage ethnique. Devant tant d'inhumanité, se taire, ne pas agir, ce n'est pas une option. Ce serait même une complicité passive. Nous sommes là pour rappeler le sens des principes fondateurs des Nations Unies, la souveraineté des peuples, l'égalité des droits, la paix par la justice, le respect du droit international et la protection des populations civiles, même en temps de guerre. Autant de valeurs aujourd'hui anéanties dans les décombres de Gaza. Le Sénégal réaffirme son engagement constant pour une solution à deux États, palestiniens et israéliens, vivant côte à côte, chacun à l'intérieur de frontières sûres et internationalement reconnues. C'est ce que veut le plan de partage décidé par les Nations Unies. C'est aussi une exigence de paix et de sécurité pour les peuples des deux pays, une exigence de justice, une exigence d'humanité. C'est pourquoi le Sénégal soutient la déclaration finale de notre rencontre préparée par la conférence ministérielle de juillet dernier, à laquelle mon pays avait co-présidé la table ronde sur le respect du droit international. Pour faire la différence, nous devons ensemble envoyer un message clair. L'occupation doit cesser. La souffrance des civils doit cesser. Il faut travailler à un cessez-le-feu immédiat. Israël doit arrêter ses bombardements et autoriser l'acheminement de l'aide humanitaire par l'ONU. L'ONU doit envisager le déploiement d'une mission de stabilisation et d'observation pour s'assurer de l'arrêt des actes illégaux. Bref, la promesse de deux États doit enfin être tenue. À ce propos, je salue le récent vote massif à l'AG de l'ONU de la résolution pour une solution pacifique à deux États. Le Sénégal salue aussi la décision historique des pays ayant décidé de reconnaître aujourd'hui l'État palestinien. Président du comité pour l'exercice inaliénable des droits du peuple palestinien, le Sénégal continuera de s'associer à toute initiative visant à favoriser le retour à une paix durable en terre palestinienne. J'en appelle à la conscience universelle. Il ne s'agit pas ici de choisir un camp contre un autre, mais de défendre la vie, de faire entendre la voix de la raison et du droit, et de préserver ce qui fait notre humanité commune, la capacité d'empathie, de justice et de solidarité. Il est temps de prendre des mesures concrètes pour la création d'un État palestinien viable. Je vous remercie.
Je remercie le président du Sénégal. Je donne à présent la parole au prince souverain de Monaco.
Cher coprésident, Madame la Présidente de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations unies, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, je remercie la France et le Royaume d'Arabie saoudite de nous avoir conviés à cette conférence. Depuis toujours, notre voix, la voix de la principauté de Monaco, s'est élevée pour défendre deux droits indissociables. Celui d'Israël à vivre en sécurité dans des frontières sûres et reconnues, et celui du peuple palestinien à disposer d'un État souverain, viable et démocratique. Aujourd'hui, nous voulons réaffirmer notre soutien indéfectible à l'existence d'Israël. Et nous voulons aussi reconnaître à la Palestine la qualité d'État en droit international, ce que je fais devant vous. Le 7 octobre 2023 est le point de départ, dans toute son horreur, du chaos actuel. Il devient plus urgent que jamais de progresser vers une solution concrète, équilibrée et durable, fondée sur la reconnaissance mutuelle et le respect des droits fondamentaux, dès que tous les otages auront été libérés et que le Hamas aura été désarmé. La paix ne peut plus rester une perspective lointaine. Elle doit s'incarner dans des institutions, dans des garanties mutuelles et dans le respect effectif des droits de chacun. La principauté de Monaco, consciente de sa place dans le concert des nations, continue d'affirmer que seule une solution fondée sur deux entités nationales vivant côte à côte, dans la dignité et le respect mutuel, ouvrira la voie à une stabilité durable. La paix ne se décrète pas, elle se construit par une volonté commune. Je vous remercie.
Je remercie le prince souverain de Monaco. Je donne à présent la parole à mon homologue, son Altesse le prince Faisal bin Farham Al Saoud.
شكرا إلى فخامة رئيس جنوب أفريقيا.
Your Excellencies, would like to thank France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening this very crucial conference. This is a moment of great significance, not only for the people of Palestine, not only for the people of Israel, but for all people who cherish the ideals of freedom and self-determination. Shortly after the United Nations was created, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 181, which recommended the creation of two states, Israel and Palestine. Immediately after the adoption of this resolution, only one state was created, the State of Israel, casting and ushering the Palestinians into a decades-long wilderness of statelessness, characterized by decades of occupation and now genocide. I'd like to congratulate the President of France, President Macron, for today announcing a very bold decision to support the long overdue creation and the recognition of the sovereign state of Palestine. President Macron, I stand here to congratulate you and to congratulate others who have taken this step. South Africa reiterates its firm commitment to the creation of a contiguous Palestinian state existing peacefully side by side with the State of Israel along the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. South Africa condemned the 7th October attacks by Hamas that resulted in the deaths of more than 1,200 people. In response to this attack, Israel has unleashed disproportionate punishment against the people of Palestine. And we say here today that the only solution to this conflict is a two-state solution. The viability of a two-state solution depends on full and universal respect for international law. All states, including the State of Israel, must comply with the collective obligations under international law. As the UN marks the 80th anniversary, we call on all member states to recognize Palestine and to act in solidarity with its people. To restore the prospects of a two-state solution, we call, firstly, for global recognition of Palestine and its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Secondly, the immediate ceasefire and an end to the genocide and the release of hostages by Hamas and prisoners by Israel. Thirdly, the full respect for international law, including the respect for UN resolutions and opinions and the decisions of the International Court of Justice. Fourthly, the removal of obstacles to the two-state solution, including a halt to illegal settlements and removal of the separation wall. Lastly, the restoration of the humanitarian aid and reconstruction of Gaza. This is a conflict that has gone on for almost as long as the United Nations has existed. And we say that as the international community, this conflict must end now, and we as the international community must act now also in unison. We must now work together to achieve a just and peaceful and lasting solution. I would like to welcome the demonstrable groundswell of support for the establishment of the much-awaited state of Palestine by 142 nations.
I thank His Excellency the President of South Africa. والآن أعطي الكلمة لفخامة رئيس أنغولا فليتفضل.
Sua Excelência Emmanuel Macron, Presidente da República da França, Excelência Sheikh Faisal Al Saud, Ministro dos Negócios Estrangeiros do Reino da Arábia Saudita, co-presidentes desta sessão especial, Excelências, gostaria de saudar a realização desta importante conferência internacional que confirma o engajamento dos Estados-membros das Nações Unidas na busca urgente de uma solução pacífica, justa e duradoura para um dos mais intrincados conflitos do planeta e o mais antigo do Médio Oriente. Merecem uma referência especial a República Francesa e o Reino da Arábia Saudita, que se engajaram com muita firmeza e de forma incansável na realização desta iniciativa. Excelências, no contexto deste encontro, assume uma relevância inquestionável a Declaração Política de Nova Iorque sobre a resolução pacífica da questão da Palestina e implementação da solução de 12 Estados, adotada a 12 de setembro do corrente ano pela Assembleia Geral das Nações Unidas, por ter demonstrado que existe um consenso internacional cada vez mais crescente sobre a necessidade de se acabar com a guerra em Gaza, com base na efetiva implementação da solução de 12 Estados. Este conflito, que dura há décadas e com um nível de violência incomum, não se resolverá, como todas as evidências o demonstram, com o recurso às armas, por mais sofisticadas que sejam, pois a comunidade internacional, que tem cada vez mais consciência deste facto, deve usar com urgência todos os meios ao seu alcance para convencer os beligerantes de que a única saída para esta situação é a via do diálogo para que se chegue a uma paz definitiva na base da criação do Estado da Palestina e na da coexistência pacífica entre os dois povos. Esta é a posição da União Africana, que inclui também o princípio de que Jerusalém Oriental deve ser a capital do Estado da Palestina independente e soberano e que a República de Angola está incondicionalmente alinhada com a Organização Continental Africana neste esforço em que todos estamos empenhados para a resolução definitiva deste conflito. Excelências, estamos a acompanhar com profunda preocupação os relatórios alarmantes sobre a situação humanitária catastrófica na faixa de Gaza, onde comunidades inteiras, incluindo crianças em elevado número, sucumbem diariamente à fome e sobrevivem em condições subhumanas. A África, de uma maneira geral, e a República de Angola em particular, temos uma posição firme de condenação ao terrorismo em todas as suas formas e manifestações, e dentro deste princípio, condenamos a ação que resultou na morte e no sequestro de uma elevada quantidade de pessoas em Israel pelo Hamas, pelo que exigimos a sua libertação urgente e incondicional como um passo para que se crie a distensão necessária ao diálogo. A par da reprovação inequívoca dos atos de violência gratuita praticados contra civis israelitas pelo Hamas, repudiamos de igual modo a reação desproporcional do Estado de Israel com a utilização de aviões caça-bombardeiros, tanques e artilharia pesada, não contra um exército convencional, mas contra a população civil e indefesa da Palestina, jornalistas, pessoal médico e funcionários das Nações Unidas e de organizações e agências humanitárias com o pretexto de perseguir o Hamas. Condenamos também a instrumentalização da assistência humanitária como arma de guerra, pelo seu caráter profundamente desumano e dificilmente justificável. É urgente que, em presença deste drama, lancemos um apelo à suspensão imediata de medidas que a obstruam e ponham em causa os direitos fundamentais de milhões de palestinos, incluindo o direito à vida, à assistência médica e à alimentação. Vemos com muita preocupação os atos de guerra realizados de forma seletiva por Israel em vários países da região, em total respeito das normas do direito internacional e dos princípios e valores da Carta das Nações Unidas, que não produzem outro efeito que não seja o de levar a um recrudescimento da tensão e da instabilidade no Médio Oriente, por destruir as perspectivas de resolução do conflito pela via do diálogo e da negociação. Excelência,
أشكر فخامة رئيس أنغولا. الآن أعطي الكلمة لمعالي رئيس الحكومة في أستراليا، فليتفضل.
President Macron, Your Royal Highness, Secretary-General, colleagues. In 1947, Australia was proud to be the first member of the United Nations to vote for the plan that made the modern State of Israel possible. But that plan always encompassed two states, a State of Israel and a State of Palestine, living side by side within internationally recognised borders, recognising each other's right to live in peace and security. With Jewish people everywhere who feel the cold shadow of history's darkest chapter in any act of anti-Semitism. Throughout this conflict, Australia has supported calls for a ceasefire because every innocent life matters. Every Israeli life, every Palestinian life. Right now, Gaza is in the grip of a humanitarian catastrophe, and the Israeli government must accept its share of responsibility. Tens of thousands of civilians have been killed. Desperate people, including children, denied vital aid. Aid workers killed, including Australian Zomi Frankham. Journalists killed trying to bring the truth to light. This comes alongside the continued illegal expansion of settlements on the West Bank and an increase in settler violence. Threats to annex parts of Palestine and permanent organisation Hamas can have no role in Palestine's future. Our recognition was predicated on commitments from the Palestinian Authority, reaffirming Israel's right to exist in peace and security, that Hamas turn over its weapons to Palestinian security forces and never controls Gaza again, and the PA must demilitarise, hold democratic elections and undertake wholesale reform to governance, finance and education. The leadership of the Arab League has added strength to these commitments. Their demand for Hamas to surrender its weapons and end its rule in Gaza has helped create this historic opportunity, a chance to deliver self-determination for Palestine in a way that permanently disarms Hamas and drives them from the region once and for all. Recognising the aspirations of the Palestinian people is about more than a seat, a voice and a vote in the councils of the world. It is about real hope for a place to call home. This is the same hope that sustained generations of Jewish people, the same hope that binds us all to our countries and cultures and drives us to want a better life for our children. Working together, we can build a future where instead of children in Gaza dying in pain, living in fear or being taught to hate, they can go to school and build a life in larger freedom. That future depends on recognition being followed by reconstruction and reform, a credible cooperative peace plan supporting recovery in Gaza and security for Israel, establishing governance and excluding Hamas on the day after and every day after that. This is the next step we must take, and we must take it together. I thank you very much.
I would like to thank His Excellency and give the floor to His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Egypt. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Your Excellency President Emmanuel Macron, President of the Republic of France, Your Highness Prince Farhan, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me at the outset to commend the efforts made by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Republic of France to organize this important conference. This conference embodies our collective commitment to the two-state solution as the only way to achieve a just and comprehensive peace in the Middle East. On behalf of Egypt, which for more than 40 years has led efforts to establish a just peace and stability in the Middle East, I address you today. Today more than ever, we need to emphasize that there will be no stability in the Middle East without a just and comprehensive solution that meets the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people to establish their independent state on the lines of the 4th of June 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital. To put it bluntly, the two-state solution is not just a political choice or a moral obligation. Instead, it's a security imperative. The only path to a secure, stable, and prosperous Middle East is to guarantee the Palestinian people's right to freedom, dignity, and independence. Security will not be achieved in Israel through military force or attempts to impose a fait accompli. Ignoring Palestinian rights will only bring about more escalation and instability. The lack of a political horizon will open the door to more violence and radicalism. This has been proven by the successive developments in our region, especially over the past 2 years. In this vein, I would like to stress Egypt's full condemnation of the ongoing Israeli aggression against the Palestinian territories and throughout the region. This includes the dangerous precedent of bombing the brotherly state of Qatar, which joins Egypt in the mediation effort to end the aggression on the Gaza Strip and restore stability. Ladies and gentlemen, the adoption of the New York Declaration by the General Assembly is a historic moment to renew the international community's commitment to fulfill the right of the Palestinian people to an independent state. Egypt hopes that this conference will see immediate, broad and unconditional recognition of the state of Palestine by the states that have not yet taken such a step. However, what is required of us today is to build on these developments. We need to take practical steps to relaunch a genuine peace process with a specific time frame. This will bring about a just and sustainable solution based on the recognized resolutions of international legitimacy. Egypt continues to make all effort to reach a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. We clearly believe that reaching a ceasefire and ending the bloodbath in Gaza is possible, as it is obligatory and necessary. The report of the United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry raises the alarm bell. It awakens every human conscience. Its findings were clear in confirming that Israel committed the crime of genocide, with its material and moral elements against Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stress that Egypt rejects any attempt at trying to displace the Palestinians or liquidating their cause. This amounts to the crime of ethnic cleansing. Thus, Egypt will, as soon as we reach a ceasefire, will host an international reconstruction conference in the Gaza Strip to mobilize the necessary funding for the Arab Islamic Reconstruction Plan in coordination with the government of Palestine. This will ensure that the Palestinian people will remain on their land, and it will help them overcome the huge losses caused by the aggression. I call upon all our partners in the international community to contribute to this reconstruction effort and early recovery as part and parcel of any serious move to make the two-state solution a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand today in a pivotal moment. Either we establish a just and lasting peace that opens doors of hope for our peoples, or we leave the region hostage. The sound was cut off. I would like to thank His Excellency the Prime Minister for his statement and give the floor to the Prime Minister of Spain.
Excellencias,
Excellencies, Whilst the recognition of a Palestinian state is urgent, it is all the more urgent that there exist a Palestinian people in the state that we're claiming to recognize, and regrettably the Palestinian people are being annihilated. For this reason, in the name of reason, in the name of international law, and in the name of human dignity, we have to stop this slaughter now. At this precise moment, bombs continue to fall indiscriminately on the civilian population in Gaza. Hunger is killing women, older persons and children. Today, we take a crucial step forward in calling for a two-state solution at this conference. But let us be lucidly clear, there is no solution possible when the population of one of those two states is the victim of a genocide. We are all well aware that the only hope that civilians in Gaza have is that of knowing that the world does not forget them, and this conference nurtures that hope. It is an act of moral rebellion, an uprising against indifference and forgetfulness. Let us make this conference too a collective commitment to halting brutality and to paving the way for peace. Excellencies, this conference marks a monumental step forward, but it is not the end of the road. It only is and can only be the beginning. As such, I want to make two proposals. First, the State of Palestine must be a fully fledged member of the United Nations. As soon as possible, we must conclude the procedure to admit the State of Palestine to this organization on an equal footing with the rest of states herein. Secondly, we have to immediately adopt measures to halt the brutality and make peace possible. Spain, of course, will adopt a plan with measures to halt the genocide in Gaza. We will continue to take brave measures shoulder to shoulder with anyone who wishes to join us, because Gaza needs it. Excellencies, history will judge us, and its verdict will be brutal with those that perpetrated this slaughter and with those who remain silent or turned a blind eye. We need to take a step forward so that reason can prevail, for diplomacy, for the respect for international law, for IHL, for common sense, and the most basic values that we hold as humankind. Let us make the 22nd of September the day that we remember as the first major step forward. Today, more than ever before, we cannot be indifferent to injustice. Thank you.
أشكر دولته على مداخلته والآن أعطي الكلمة.
I thank the President of the Government of Spain for his statement, and I give the floor to the Prime Minister of Canada.
Your Excellency, Monsieur le Président de la France, Your Excellency Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud. Since 1947, it has been the policy of every Canadian government to support a two-state solution for lasting peace in the Middle East. This position envisioned the creation of a sovereign, democratic, and viable state of Palestine, building its future in peace and security alongside the State of Israel. Over many decades, Canada's commitment to this goal was premised on the expectation that this outcome would be eventually achieved as part of a negotiated settlement. Regrettably, this possibility has been steadily and gravely eroded, including by the pervasive threat of Hamas terrorism to Israel and its people, culminating in the heinous attack of October 7th. The accelerated building of settlements across the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and the soaring settler violence against Palestinians. Actions such as the E1 settlement plan and the Israeli government's contribution to the humanitarian disaster in Gaza. Hamas
sows terror among the Israeli people and has oppressed the people of Gaza. That has prompted us to take the position we have. Hamas must absolutely release all hostages, disarm fully, and never play any role in the future governance of Palestine.
stolen from the Palestinian people, chased them and cheated them from their life and liberty, and it can in no way dictate their future. But, Excellencies, the current Israeli government is working methodically to prevent the prospect of a Palestinian state from ever being established. Il poursuit sans relâche l'expansion.
And tirelessly continues settlement expansion in the West Bank. That is illegal under international law. Its constant aggression against Gaza has claimed the lives of tens of thousands of civilians. It has compelled the displacement of more than 2 million people and caused a devastating famine. Another violation of international law.
Proud policy of the current Israeli government that there will be, and I quote, no Palestinian state. In this context, Canada recognizes the state of Palestine and we offer our full partnership in building the promise of a peaceful future for both the state of Palestine and the state of Israel. Excellencies, Canada is under no illusions that this recognition is a panacea. This recognition is, however, firmly aligned with the principles of self-determination and fundamental human rights in the UN Charter, and it is fundamentally consistent with the policy of the Canadian government for generations. We take this action as part of a coordinated effort led by France and Saudi Arabia, a coordinated effort to provide the possibility of peace and a two-state solution. Recognizing the state of Palestine, led by the Palestinian Authority, empowers those who seek peaceful coexistence and the end of Hamas. It doesn't legitimize terrorism. And in no way does it compromise Canada's steadfast support for the State of Israel, its people, and their security, because that security can only be ultimately guaranteed through the achievement of a comprehensive two-state solution. Canada
will make the efforts it needs to make to support the Palestinian Authority in implementing its program.
With our international...
The microphone has been cut off. I thank the Prime Minister of Canada for his statement. I give the floor to the Prime Minister of Ireland.
Presidents, co-chairs, may I begin by thanking France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening us today, and I commend them for their leadership on this most vital of issues. Those of us gathered here know that the only viable option to deliver a peaceful future for Israel and for Palestine is a two-state solution. At this most critical juncture, we must continue to put our full political weight behind it. The situation on the ground has rarely looked so bleak. A just and lasting peace seems further away than it ever has. But in our own peace process in Northern Ireland, to a conflict of 24 years' duration, we recognised that even in the darkest of days, we had a duty as leaders to keep the flame of hope alive and to keep talking. The immense suffering of the Palestinian population in Gaza over the past 2 years has been an affront to the world. It has horrified people around the world, nowhere more than in Ireland, where people have been moved to sorrow and to anger. What happened to Israel on the 7th of October was a horrific and brutal attack on an innocent civilian population, and Hamas must be held to account for its actions. It was an appalling act of crime, war crime. But it cannot justify what has happened since. More than 65,000 people killed in Gaza. Horrifically, more than 20,000 of them children. The use of food as a weapon of war, with scarcity becoming hunger, becoming famine. Hospitals attacked, homes and schools destroyed, thousands of years of culture wiped out. People shot as they desperately seek food for their families. Doctors, aid workers, journalists targeted and killed. We have reached a point where what has been credibly described as a genocide is being carried out in front of the eyes of the world. It would be easy to just despair, but we must not. Gaza must move us to action. And there are still humanitarian workers, medics, journalists determined to do their best for the people of Gaza and for Palestine. They are doing so with the most extraordinary courage and without regard to their own safety. To honour them and the Palestinian people, it is right that we as political leaders play our part too. And the only way to end the appalling cycle of violence is to forge a political path. And the only credible destination is a two-state solution, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. And that is why Ireland last year, with Spain, Norway and Slovenia, recognised the state of Palestine. I commend those who have taken the decision to recognise the state of Palestine this week, and I strongly urge those who have yet to do so to give it serious consideration. We know that there are people, including in the Israeli government, who are working daily to make that outcome impossible. In addition to the destruction of Gaza, settlements are expanding every day, and illegal settlers in the West Bank are increasingly emboldened and militant. If we do not move now to protect the two-state solution, if we do not work to build a process through which it can be achieved, there may never be another opportunity. That must not be our legacy to future generations. Ireland is ready to play its part, and I look forward to our continuing steadfast cooperation. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank His Excellency for his statement, and I now give the floor to the Prime Minister of Belgium.
Dear Secretary General, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Belgium has always defended the two-state solution and is today reaffirming once again this position by having joined the co-signatories of the New York Declaration. Only this solution will allow Israelis and Palestinians to live side by side in peace and security. To support this aspiration, since the Oslo agreements, Belgium has provided bilateral funding and technical assistance to the Palestinians for a total amount of around 600 million euros. We also remain committed to meeting the acute humanitarian needs in Gaza. We have recently airdropped over 190 tons of humanitarian supplies to address the most acute needs. The Belgian government has recently decided to add another 12.5 million euros to our humanitarian budget for Gaza, in addition to what has already been disbursed. Full and free access to Gaza for providing massive humanitarian aid is an urgent need, as the famine has been officially recognized by the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the resumption of settlement activities in the West Bank, particularly the E1 project, the military occupation aimed at the full occupation of Gaza, as well as the indescribable humanitarian crisis, all raise fears today that in the absence of an international response confirming the need to keep the prospect of a Palestinian state alive, peaceful and sustainable coexistence in two states may no longer be possible. The recent declarations of a number of Israeli ministers, including the Prime Minister himself, that no state of Palestine will ever exist, is an additional reason for reaffirming the right and the need of the Palestinians having their own state. Therefore, Belgium is giving out a strong political and diplomatic signal to the world today by joining the group of countries that announces the recognition of the State of Palestine in the margin of this high-level week of the United Nations General Assembly. We are thus joining the initiative of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as advocated in the resolution adopted by the Belgian Parliament. Through this initiative, we continue to support international law, particularly the right to self-determination of peoples. Let me be clear, however, this step cannot be a reward for Hamas. Conscious of the trauma suffered after the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7, 2023, Belgium will proceed to the legal recognition of the State of Palestine once all hostages have been released and all terrorist organizations, such as Hamas, have been removed from the governance of Palestine. The effective conduct of diplomatic relations with the new State of Palestine, including the opening of a Belgian embassy and the conclusion of international agreements, will be carried out once the objectives of the New York Declaration have been achieved, notably the full demilitarization of Hamas and subsequent the renewal of governments based on presidential and parliamentary elections, giving the Palestinians a democratic, strengthened and renewed authority. All these steps are intended to guarantee the security of both the Israeli and Palestinian population. At the same time, we also strongly call for the recognition of the State of Israel by all Arab countries. Let us be clear, the two-state solution is not dead. It is bruised, but it can be revived, and it must be for the sake of both peoples. I thank you.
We thank His Excellency, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Prime Minister of Norway.
Excellencies, thank you, France and Saudi Arabia, for convening us together in New York today. I would also like to salute the President of the State of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas. I find it an illustration of deep injustice that he was denied entry to be with us today. But his address was reasonable and dignified. Thank you, Mr. President. 32 years ago, the first Oslo Accords were signed, forever creating an association between my country, my capital, and a vision for peace in the Middle East. Ever since, we have worked for one end: peace, security, and dignity for the Palestinians and the Israelis, living side by side in two sovereign states, enjoying the rights and obligations that follow from the Charter of the United Nations. I have followed this closely, now as Prime Minister, previously as Foreign Minister, and also as Secretary General of the Norwegian Red Cross. Today's conference marks a historical high point of international support for and recognition of the state of Palestine. At the same time, the situation on the ground is perhaps the furthest we have been from its realization. The situation in Gaza is catastrophic. The governance structures created by the Oslo Accords are driven to the verge of collapse, and the encroachment of Palestinian territory continues. Yes, it is complex, but it is true. The two-state solution is the only credible path to peace and security for both Israelis and Palestinians. An occupying power cannot have a veto over what happens in a territory it is unlawfully occupying. The Palestinian people have the right to self-determination, as do the Israeli people. Last year, therefore, Norway, along with Spain and Ireland and Slovenia, recognized the State of Palestine. We welcome the recognitions announced this week and last year and today. Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la décision
And thank you, Mr. President, for France's decision.
The urgent need to stop the violence, improve access to humanitarian assistance, release the hostages, and pave the way for a lasting solution based on the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Only last week, this Assembly approved a roadmap of concrete actions to this end. And in July, a broad majority voted the New York Declaration. But friends, there will be no state of Palestine or a body to govern Gaza the day after without functioning Palestinian authorities. Preserving and reforming the institutions that we together have invested in and helped build over the last 3 decades is critical. It is critical for the well-being of the Palestinian population and its desperate hour. And it is critical for peace and security also for Israel. The alternative is chaos or worse. It is the strongest rejection we can come up with of Hamas and terrorism to recognize a Palestinian state under the Charter of the United Nations. Norway will continue to support the Palestinian government, including through emergency funds we are mobilizing with other donors. And we continue to call on Israel to release the tax revenues owed to Palestine. These revenues are desperately needed to fund schools, hospitals, and the police. So, friends, this is a time to stand up and be counted. As defenders of human dignity and human rights, as defenders of a world with firm laws and rules, as defenders of peaceful resolutions. For 80 years, the UN has been a family of nations. The state of Palestine belongs to this family. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Prime Minister of Luxembourg.
Monsieur le Président, Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in history when the cause of peace demands both moral clarity and political courage. 8 years ago was such a moment. The founding of the United Nations was an act of courage, guided by a clear vision of a world based on universal values and principles of peace, freedom, and justice. Today, again, is such a moment in history. Luxembourg stands here today as a partner to all those who believe that diplomacy still matters, that it can make a difference. We want to remain true to their promise made 8 years ago. Luxembourg stands here today as a partner for peace. We remain convinced that a two-state solution remains the only viable way forward for a lasting peace. Our goal is a safe and secure state of Israel living side by side with a safe and secure state of Palestine. Rarely has the prospect of a two-state solution felt more distant than today, and yet never has the international will to achieve it been more unified. When doubts grow, we must face them with the certainty of hope. That is why I solemnly declare that as of today, Luxembourg formally recognizes the state of Palestine. Recognition is not the end of a process. It is the beginning of a renewed commitment to hope, a commitment to diplomacy, to dialogue, to coexistence, and a two-state solution. To the idea, fragile but still possible, that peace can prevail. We take this step fully aware of its great symbolic weight. It is our contribution to a political process, one that we hope will revive the prospect of a negotiated two-state solution, grounded in the legitimate aspirations of both Palestinians and Israelis. It is fully aligned with the principles that have guided Luxembourg's foreign policy since 1945. Respect for international law, the promotion of a rules-based order, and the values enshrined in the UN Charter. And let me be clear, this is not a decision against Israel or its people, a people with which my country shares strong historic ties, and whose right to live in peace and security we have been fully upholding since 1948. Luxembourg has been and will remain a friend of the people of Israel and Jews around the world. And with the same clarity, let me say that this is not a decision to reward violence or endorse any actor who undermines peace. Luxembourg condemns, in the strongest possible terms, the atrocities of October 7, and we call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. And in line with the New York Declaration, we expect the Palestinian leadership to live up to the responsibilities of statehood. The road ahead will not be easy. We do not claim this recognition alone will change the course of the conflict, but we hope it will contribute to restoring momentum to the political horizon that has been lost. Peace is not simply declared. Real peace, lasting peace, is built step by step, brick upon brick. Let this recognition be a message to grieving families, to hopeful children, and to all those who have not yet given up. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency the Prime Minister and give the floor to the Prime Minister of Malta.
Excellencies, dear friends, let me begin by stating clearly and unequivocally that the Republic of Malta is proud to confirm our official recognition of Palestinian statehood. We do so as a demonstration of our concrete commitment to a genuine and peaceful two-state solution, as the only solution that will secure the future of both peoples. Malta is equally unequivocal in its support for the right of Israel to exist alongside a democratic Palestinian state. In making this commitment, I am acutely aware of how events have unfolded since the appalling Hamas attacks of October the 7th. They were the despicable work of a terrorist organization which must have no place in the emerging Palestinian state. Since then, Malta has been unwavering in calling for the unconditional release of all the remaining hostages. No ifs, no buts. The hostages must come home now. Malta adds once again its voice to those demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire. The fighting must stop now. I am also aware of the opinion that recognizing the state of Palestine somehow amounts to a victory for Hamas. A two-state solution, however, is the worst possible outcome for Hamas. It is not what they want to see. They want to see Israel wiped off the map. Malta and our allies want to see Hamas wiped out. We must never forget that Hamas openly and violently opposed all the previous efforts at peace. If Palestinians can see a peaceful and realistic road to nationhood and self-determination, it fatally undermines the siren cries of Hamas. It offers the only hope that there is an alternative to conflict. I ask, what is the other alternative? What is the future that the hotheads on both sides envisage? A conflict without end, Israel under constant attack, a region mired in instability. That is an outcome nobody should want. Instead, with the right to recognition come huge responsibilities for the Palestinian leadership. There must be absolute adherence from the outset to non-violence, and mutual recognition. Hamas must have no role in any shape or form in the future government of Palestine. Malta supports the Palestinians' authority, one state, one government, one law, one gun approach, and the need for urgent, free, and fair elections. Equally, there are urgent responsibilities for the Israeli government. The attacks on civilians and infrastructure must stop immediately. The illegal settler encroachment and accompanying violence in the West Bank must also stop immediately. And unhindered aid under genuine international auspices must be allowed to flow immediately. Starvation is being suffered in Gaza, and the deaths of hungry civilians trying to access the pitiful trickle of food aid being allowed in cannot be allowed to go on. I am not ashamed to admit that I cried after recently visiting the young children we brought over to Malta from Gaza to give them the best medical care our island has to offer and the required prosthesis. These innocent children have had their limbs and the best part of their life stolen away from them. They have also lost their parents, and they have been caused irreparable harm. But we will not allow their hope for a better future to be stolen away from them. And we will protect them. Ibrahim, I promised you that, and we will stick to our word. What is happening is morally and legally very wrong, and we have a duty on all of us to act. We know that the path to a functioning, free, and fair two-state solution is a long and also hard one. We know the dangers that lie along that path, but we also know the greater dangers that arise from saying nothing can be done, that the dream has died. We cannot and we will not remain silent or complacent. The depth of the current tragedy must be
The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank His Excellency for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the EU.
Monsieur le Président, Altesse Royale,
President, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, I would like to thank the initiative of France and Saudi Arabia, the initiative being to gather us at a critical juncture for peace in the Middle East. The region has known far too many wars, far too much violence and terrorism, too many deaths. Today in Gaza, we are facing a humanitarian catastrophe. We see families broken, famine used as a weapon of war. This disaster must end. The European Union once again calls for an immediate ceasefire, unfettered humanitarian access, and an end to insecurity. We want the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. We condemn the military offensive underway in Gaza. We also firmly condemn the violent escalation in the West Bank. We call on Israel to put an end to the aforementioned operations to stop the illegal settlements. Excellencies, today, thanks to the impetus provided by this conference, the State of Palestine has been recognized by the majority of EU member states. Nonetheless, we must be clear-eyed about the day after. There is no room for Hamas, for terrorism. There is no room for illegal settlements. There's no room for deaths of innocent civilians. Nowhere, neither in Gaza nor in the West Bank, nor in East Jerusalem, nor in Israel. There's only one way forward, and that's the two-state solution. The State of Israel, secure and recognized by all members of this General Assembly, and the State of Palestine, democratic, independent, viable. Two states living side by side in peace. The time for peace has come, and we're duty-bound to live up to the times we face. I thank you.
Monsieur le Président,
President,
ladies and gentlemen, when the night is darkest, we must hold fast to our compass. And our compass is the two-state solution. October 7th has opened one of the darkest chapters in history. We all agree that the tragedy in Gaza must stop right now and all hostages released. But ending the war might not be enough if there is no pathway to peace, if the prospect of two states is no longer viable. And as we speak, the two-state solution is being undermined, and this cannot be, because the only realistic peace plan is based on two states, with a secure Israel, a viable Palestinian state, and the scourge of Hamas removed. Since the beginning of this war, Europe has been the lifeline of the Palestinian Authority. We have put together an unmatched and unprecedented financial package of 1.6 billion euros. But as the very survival of the Palestinian Authority is at stake, we must all do more. And this is why we will set up a Palestine donor group. Any future Palestinian state must be viable, also from the economic point of view. And this can be achieved also with the support of the Palestinians' neighbors. We Europeans will set up a dedicated instrument for Gaza's reconstruction in coordination with other donors' efforts. Gaza must be rebuilt, the Palestinian economy must be relaunched, and I invite all of you to join in the effort to make this happen. Of course, in the end, only the Israelis and the Palestinians can agree on the way forward. But the international community has so much to contribute. We can facilitate, we can rebuild, but most importantly, we can keep hope alive. Thank you very much.
شكرا على المداخلة.
I thank you for your statements. Given the limited remaining time, we ask the Excellencies to limit their statements to 2 minutes, after which the microphones will be cut off. I give the floor now to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy.
President Macron, Minister Faisal, this conference takes place at a crucial time. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Our position is clear. Italy is against the occupation of Gaza Strip and against any idea of displacement of its population. Italy condemns also the recent attack against Doha, but we encourage Doha to continue in the crucial effort to mediate, together with Egypt and the United States, to reach a ceasefire. We deplore the decision of the Israel government to expand settlements in the West Bank. We also condemn in the strongest terms, the recent terrorist attacks carried by Hamas against the Israeli civilian population in Jerusalem. We are fully convinced that a path to peace is still possible, Like Pope Leo said, we cannot abandon the hope for peace. Italy strongly supports the dream of the Palestinian people to have a state. We will continue to support the Palestinian Authority in its reform. We will work hard for two-state solutions with the peaceful coexistence of the Palestinians and Israelis. It is the only solution to ensure a future of peace and prosperity in the Middle East. For this goal, it's crucial to reach the ceasefire, the liberation of the hostages, and the resumption of full humanitarian access. From the beginning of the conflict, Italy provided thousands of tons of aid to the Palestinian population. We also organized medical evacuation to cure in Italy hundreds of Palestinian children. We know this is not enough. We must interrupt the cycle of violence. The message from New York is clear. Israel, stop bombing. Hamas, freedom immediately for the hostages. We must focus on the day after. It should meet.
The microphone has been cut off.
Minister. I thank His Excellency. وأعطي الكلمة الآن إلى معالي وزير.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Foreign Minister of Algeria. I thank the co-presidency of this conference. Algeria welcomes the convening of this conference, which is the fruit of an international consensus. This consensus is the main guarantor for a just, lasting, and final settlement to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This international consensus is a strong barrier against Israeli expansionist policies under the guise of the Greater Israel myth. This international consensus is the most powerful response to the illusions of the Israeli occupation and its belief that it alone holds the power to veto the establishment of the Palestinian state on the land of Palestine. It is time for concrete action to realize and enforce this consensus on several levels. The first level is expanding the base of official recognitions of the State of Palestine as an irreversible international reality. The second level is enabling the State of Palestine to obtain full membership in our organization, a membership that the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has consistently called for from this very rostrum. The third level is confronting diplomatically, legally, politically, and economically the plans of the occupation to annex Palestinian land and to displace the Palestinian people from their historic homeland. The fourth and final level is the internal Palestinian level. Palestinians have to close ranks and unify their word in order to regain their independence and for their movement to regain its strength and for their voice to regain its influence regionally and internationally. Thank you.
شكرا معالي الوزير.
I thank His Excellency and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Foreign Minister of the United Kingdom, and I would like to remind you once again that you have 2 minutes, after which the microphone will be cut off.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Your Excellencies, President Macron and Prince Faisal. I stand before you today beneath the emblem of the United Nations to confirm the historic decision of the British government to recognise the State of Palestine. This step, alongside friends and partners, reflects a long-standing truth that statehood is the inalienable right of the Palestinian people and that two states is the only path to security and lasting peace for Israelis and Palestinians alike. But it also reflects a grave reality. The two-state solution that for decades has commanded global support is in profound peril. From continued bloodshed, man-made famine, terrorism and hostage-taking, settlement expansion and settler violence. And Hamas terrorists continue to hold hostages seized in the barbaric attack of October 7th, prolonging the unimaginable anguish of their families. And in Gaza, the unbearable humanitarian catastrophe worsens as the Netanyahu government chooses to escalate war and hold back aid. Children dying of starvation while food rots at the border. And settlement expansion threatens the very viability of a Palestinian state. The two-state solution risks disappearing beneath the rubble. That is what extremists on all sides want, but we refuse to let hope be lost. Recognition is born of urgency and principle, alongside our unwavering support for the security of Israel and its people. This pathway is the opposite of Hamas's hateful vision, and this process around recognition has helped cement the rejection of Hamas across the Arab world, alongside new reforms to the Palestinian Authority, because there can be no role for Hamas in the future governance of Palestine. But recognition must be a spur, not a substitute for urgent action. A ceasefire now, the release of all hostages, the restoration of aid and a lasting framework for peace. Recognition is about the future, but it is rooted in our past. 75 years ago, Britain was rightly proud to recognise the State of Israel. But the promise of upholding Palestinian rights has gone unfulfilled. For decades, my country supported a two-state solution, but only recognised one state. That changes now, as we join more than 150 member states in recognising the State of Palestine and protecting the pathway to peace. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency, and I give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Mexico.
Señor Presidente.
Mr. President, Excellencies, we are all concerned by the grave crises in the Middle East. It requires urgent actions, and it's on all of our minds. Since our meeting in last July, we have seen confirmation of a famine in Gaza, and the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory has concluded that genocide has been committed in the Gaza Strip. There is an urgent need for collective actions which put an end to this heart-rending war. We need to see a just, peaceful and lasting arrangement based on the effective implementation of the two-state solutions. This should allow a safe and prosperous future for all countries in the region. The support for the New York Declaration issued by the General Assembly should lead to the establishment of political and security frameworks able to halt the humanitarian crisis. We must begin reconstruction and recovery work and guarantee the long-term security of both states. Mexico recognizes these steps taken by all mediating countries to immediately achieve a definitive ceasefire and the release of all hostages. It is our view that a just and lasting and peaceful solution based on international law must be supported by narratives, underpinned by narratives that humanize the problem, counter division, and promote the acceptance of the other. The microphone has been cut off.
Your Excellency, Mr. Minister, I would like to draw the attention of the Minister that his mic is no longer working. Gracias. Thank you, Excellency. والآن أعطي الكلمة.
And I give the floor to His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Japan.
At the outset, I wish to express my profound respect and sincere appreciation to France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their leadership in convening this high-level conference. Together with Norway, we have had the honor of serving as co-chair of the working group on the economic viability of Palestine, engaging in sincere and constructive discussions with UN member states and international organizations. Urgent action is required to address the fiscal challenges facing the Palestinian Authority, sustained support for the PA, concerted engagement by the international community with Israel, and reforms undertaken by the PA itself. Japan continues to make tangible contributions, including recent financial assistance through the World Bank. Yet today, the situation has reached an extremely grave and alarming juncture that threatens to erode the very foundation of a two-state solution. The sharp deterioration of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the expansion of settlement activities in the West Bank, and steps toward annexations are completely unacceptable. Japan strongly condemns these actions and calls on Israel to immediately cease all such unilateral measures. At the same time, Hamas must release all hostages and disarm. Japan has consistently supported a two-state solution. For my country, the issue of recognizing a Palestinian state is not a matter of if, but of when. While carefully monitoring developments in the region, Japan will continue its comprehensive deliberations with even greater seriousness. Above all, what matters most is that Palestine can exist in a sustainable manner, living side by side in peace with Israel. Japan will continue to play a realistic and proactive role in advancing toward the goal of a two-state solution, even by a single step. Should Israel take further actions that block the path to the realization of a two-state solution, Japan will be compelled to introduce new measures in response. Japan fully supports the aspirations of the Palestinian people to establish their own independent state.
I would like to thank His Excellency and give the floor to His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Andorra.
Messieurs les Présidents, Excellences.
Presidents, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the situation in Gaza has become unbearable. Civilian victims, mostly women and children, run into the tens of thousands. Humanitarian access has been seriously hindered. Hunger is a weapon of war. Forced displacement has taken on outsized proportions. Faced with this human tragedy, we reiterate our call for an immediate ceasefire and the need to ensure a lasting end is put on this terrible conflict. The only credible path out of this conflict, ladies and gentlemen, is the two-state solution. The 12th September vote did not leave a shadow of a doubt. This assembly, by an overwhelming majority, believes that the Palestinian people should live in peace and security within their own state, side by side with the State of Israel. With this widely shared assessment in mind, the government of Andorra approved the recognition of Palestine. We will continue to forcefully call for the release of all hostages, for the disarmament of Hamas, the perpetrators of the atrocious 7th of October 2023 attacks, and for the advent of a Palestinian state that's been demilitarized and that exists under the reformed authority of a government that excludes Hamas. When the conditions are in place, and if we can guarantee the full regional integration of Israel, this recognition will take its effect. With this recognition of Palestine, our country, which is proud of its over 7 centuries of uninterrupted peace, and remains committed to neutrality, multilateralism. The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
Your Excellency. Bravo.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I give the floor now to the Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia.
Your Excellencies, I would like to thank France and Saudi Arabia. A mutually agreed and sustainable two-state solution is the only viable path forward for peace in the Middle East. This cannot exist without a legitimate and capable Palestinian Authority, which requires reforms but also international support. We cannot allow the region to revert to an ineffective state that leaves a vacuum. It is for these reasons I signed a memorandum of understanding with Palestine last month. The horrifying images of starving children in Gaza are the outcome of deliberate choices. This is a man-made catastrophe. Gaza is enduring what international law defines as genocide. This demands clarity of words and urgency of action. When brute force replaces law, it will not bring security. It will bring instability and radicalization for generations. We insist that law must apply equally to the powerful as to the weak. Slovenia has acted. We recognize Palestine together with Ireland, Norway and Spain. We call for a permanent ceasefire, the release of all hostages and the protection of all civilians. We insist that humanitarian aid must flow into Gaza. We are at a turning point. We welcome the most recent recognitions and insist others must follow suit. History will not be kind to hesitation. It will not remember speeches that avoided difficult truths. It will unapologetically remember those who stood silent when genocide unfolded. Let this conference be remembered not as another echo chamber, but as the place where the international community finally moved from words to consequences. And
the speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank Her Excellency, and I give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Germany.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, across Gaza, people are living through hell on earth. Tens of thousands of people have died. Hundreds of thousands are starving. Colleagues, The horrendous terrorist attacks of October 7 and the most brutal war that followed have made it very clear. This decades-old conflict cannot be solved by terror, destruction and death. It can neither be won nor managed. It needs to be resolved. We are well aware that today a two-state solution appears more distant than ever. We are well aware that steps are being taken as we speak to bring it further out of reach. We are meeting today because we are convinced there can be a better future. An independent, democratic and viable Palestinian state existing side by side and in peace and in security with Israel. A negotiated two-state solution in accordance with international law, one to which no convincing alternative has been presented so far. Colleagues, to bring that future closer, Germany is guided by three principles. First, we do not and will not recognize any changes to the 1967 borders unless agreed upon both parties. Second, we consider Israeli settlements in the occupied territories unlawful and a serious obstacle to peace. And third, we respect the IGC's advisory opinion of 19th July 2024 and act in line with its stipulations. My country will always be deeply committed to Israel's existence, which is still being questioned by some. My country will always be committed to Israel's long-term security.
Microphone has been cut off.
Herr Minister, Herr Minister, Herr Minister, Ihr Mikrofon ist ausgeschaltet. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. شكرا معالي الوزير. والآن
Thank you, Excellency. I now give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Denmark.
Thank you, President Macron and Prince Faisal bin Farhan, for your unwavering effort to push for momentum towards the two-state solution. Denmark has endorsed the New York Declaration and remained deeply committed to build on that momentum. Almost 2 years has passed since Hamas' appalling terrorist attack, and ever since Denmark has repeatedly condemned the attack, and we continue to insist on the immediate and safe release of every hostage. In the meanwhile, the war in Gaza has created a humanitarian catastrophe of unbearable scale, and Israel is expanding its military offensive. This needs to stop now. Israel needs to change course now. As an elected member of the Security Council, Denmark actively pushes for solutions, urging for an immediate ceasefire, release of hostages, unhindered humanitarian access. Today, the two-state solution is challenged by the war in Gaza, by Israel's direct opposition, expanding of illegal settlements, and threats to annex Gaza and the West Bank. This is why I say today, the keys to recognition of the Palestine state should no longer lie in the hands of the Israeli government. The Palestinians themselves must be able to fulfill the conditions for the creation of a viable Palestinian state. The key must be in their hands. The Palestinians must become masters of their own destiny. Therefore, Denmark stands ready to recognize Palestine as a state when certain conditions are met. The Israeli hostages are released, when Hamas are disarmed and no longer plays a role in Gaza, when there has been further progress on the PA's reform agenda, and when it is certain, and when there is certainty that a future Palestinian state will be demilitarized. In that spirit, we welcome the strong commitment by President Abbas regarding democratic reform and condemnation of Hamas, confirming that they can have no role in Gaza. Denmark has been at the forefront pushing for
The microphone has been cut off.
Your Excellency, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency, and I give the floor to His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of the Netherlands.
Your Excellencies, today we unite as international community to voice our support for the two-state solution. Allow me to thank France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for providing this opportunity. We must bring an end to this continuous cycle of violence and suffering that Palestinians and Israelis have for long endured. We have both the ability and the obligation to provide hope and a future to those who seek peace and reconciliation. The horrendous war in Gaza must end now, and the worrying tide in the West Bank must be turned. With this in mind, we put our signature under the New York Declaration. And with this in mind, we have taken and will take steps to preserve the two-state solution and alleviate the immense suffering of the people of Gaza. A full course correction is needed, and the steps the Netherlands takes at the national and European level should force Israel to change its course. A legitimate and democratic Palestinian Authority with full control of the Palestinian territories is critical for achieving a viable Palestinian state. Hamas can have no role in future governance, must release all hostages and lay down its arms, and any future solution must guarantee the security of Israel, as we remain fully aware of the intention of Hamas and its likes. The Netherlands will recognize the Palestinian state at a later stage as part of a political process that should commence now. In the meanwhile, we actively contribute, for example, through hosting the Global Alliance or through the Ad Hoc Liaison Committee, and all of the areas identified in the annex of the New York Declaration currently count on Dutch support. We must continue to build on the outcomes of this conference and maintain momentum. An independent Palestinian state alongside a secure Israel.
The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now give the floor to His Excellency, Minister of State of Qatar.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Your Excellencies, I would like to express my appreciation to His Excellency, the President of France, and His Royal Highness of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their perception in convening this historic conference for the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian cause under the umbrella of the United Nations. This international movement comes in a very important context. First, a historic context of decades of injustice, occupying the territories of peoples who have been subjected under occupation, taking their land and living under complete destruction in Gaza. At the same time, the West Bank is subjected to reckless practices, annexing land, expanding settlement, and violating the holy sanctities. This is a dangerous threat to international peace and security and to the Middle East. This Israeli escalatory aggression came as a threat to so many countries in the region, including my country. Our capital, Doha, has been subjected to a treacherous Israeli aggression that violated its territorial integrity, led to the killing of 6 martyrs, and put the entire region to the brink of danger. This was a violation of international law and the UN Charter, and we believe that Israel is fully responsible for this rogue aggression, which was condemned by the Security Council and the United Nations. We have participated in the preparation of this conference to come up with a document that will be balanced to ensure the participation of all. Today, we must stress the establishment of a Palestinian statehood with sovereignty. The mic was cut off.
معاليك. شكرا.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
أشكر معاليكم على كلمة.
I would like to thank you, Your Excellency, and give the floor to His Excellency, the Minister of State in the UAE. Your Excellency, President Emmanuel Macron, Your Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan, Excellencies, at the outset, I would like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the French Republic for their concerted effort to organize this conference and the adoption of the New York Declaration by an overwhelming majority at the General Assembly. This would lead to the establishment of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state living in peace and security alongside the State of Israel. We welcome the growing international recognition of the State of Palestine. We call upon the states that have not yet recognized the State of Palestine to do so. In light with the dangerous developments unfolding in the Gaza Strip and the ongoing threats to annex the West Bank and other serious and unacceptable violations, it's imperative that we intensify our efforts to achieve an immediate and lasting ceasefire, release all hostages and detainees, and guarantee full, unconditional humanitarian access across the entire Strip. We have to support the mediation efforts by Egypt, Qatar, and the USA. We call upon the Security Council to uphold its legal and moral responsibilities by taking measures to deter Israel and stop its violations in the occupied Palestinian territories and acts of aggression across the region. We caution that this would have grave risks to regional and international security and peace. The achievement of lasting peace hinges on creating a clear political horizon to establish an independent Palestinian state. It's important to have a legitimate, capable Palestinian national authority that can control arms and be accountable. To conclude, Mr. President, let's pave the way for a lasting, just and comprehensive peace that fulfills the aspirations of the peoples of the region. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, and I give the floor to the Vice President of the Vice Prime Minister of Russia.
Distinguished co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen, what's happening in the Middle East has exceeded all thinkable and unthinkable limits over the last 3 years. We've seen an uptick in the terrorist threat, aggressive attacks on sovereignty and the territorial integrity of states, violations of the UN Charter, as well as attacks on sites under AEA safeguards. Before our very eyes, we have seen hunger, man-made hunger. We're seeing queues, people queuing for foodstuffs. 50,000 people, children have died, and many children are suffering from malnutrition. According to the OCHA representative, the city of Gaza has been handed down a death sentence. The Israeli leadership has announced it will be annexing a large portion of the West Bank, building up E1, that sector, and thus doing a blow to the establishment of a continuous state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital. Palestinians are being subjected to unspeakable suffering, as well as having their hopes for a better future taken away from them. And this at a time when we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II and the establishment of the UN. Many states promised the recognition of Palestine some time ago, and today they made good on that promise. They did this 80 years after the adoption of a key decision, Resolution 181 of the UNGA, with the partition plan of former Mandate Palestine into 2 states. I'd like to remind you that Russia, much like the overwhelming majority of the world's states, 149 states, long ago recognized the legitimate rights of Palestinians to return to their own state. And we did this without waiting for this current human tragedy. The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for this statement, and I give the floor To His Excellency the Secretary General of the League of Arab States. Your Excellency, we face an extraordinary moment by all standards and means, while the Israeli occupation is seeking now to bury the project of the Palestinian state on the streets of Gaza. We see the representatives of the overwhelming majority of the countries of the world at highest levels to save this project. We are here today not to save the Palestinian state only, but to also save some of our common humanity. I would like to remind everyone that the State of Israel was established through a UN resolution, and the the states recognizing Israel had the biggest impact on the fact that it was established and given legitimacy. The UN resolutions stipulated the establishment of Palestinian state to be established alongside Israel, but this state did not see the light of day for several reasons. We have a duty, this important duty, to make this conference a major milestone on a path that is important and a road that is irreversible towards implementing the two-state solution, and for the states to recognize the Palestinian state today. They should also have the duty of protecting Palestinians against systematic killing and the Palestinians against punitive measures that undermine future opportunities and bring us backwards. Thank you, Mr. President. I thank you, Your Excellency, for this statement. This would be our last speaker for this afternoon. The fifth plenary meeting is hereby resumed. I now invite my fellow co-chair to make his statements.
I
wish to thank you, heads of state and government, ministers, foreign affairs and official representatives for having participated in this historic conference on the margins of the UN General Assembly. The conference has allowed us to take note of the significant progress that has been made since the conference last July. And we must not and we will not stop here. This collective effort is vital and must continue in the next few weeks if we are to rise to the major challenge of transforming a hopeless ongoing war into a reality of peace and security which stands the test of time. Time is marching on given the extremely grave nature of the situation and the collective suffering of civilians. The dynamic we've ushered in today must be followed by rigorous work on Palestine's tomorrow. The Palestinian Authority must be reformed. There must be the laying down of arms, Hamas excluded from government, and other things. This will, if we move forward in this way, there will be able to be a sovereign, independent Palestine state alongside Israel, guaranteeing everyone's security. As we chart this course, our only adversaries are extremism and hatred. Let us give them no ground whatsoever. Ours is the duty to stop Israeli and Palestinians from getting bogged down in an infinite spiral of violence. As the President of the Republic said, time has come for peace. Thank you.
Allow me to make some concluding remarks. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia expresses its appreciation to all countries that have announced their recognition of the State of Palestine and its deep appreciation of President Mahmoud Abbas for his unwavering commitment to peace. These recognitions today are not symbolic but reflect a will and a responsibility in fulfilling the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and decisive action towards ending occupation and make the two-state solution a reality that is irreversible. Based on what we have witnessed today and this growing consensus, international consensus, we will continue to work with all our partners in order to end the Israeli aggression and ensure accountability, achieve sustainable peace and prosperity for Palestinians and all countries in the region. We also thank our partners, the Republic of France, for their constructive efforts and genuine efforts to support the peace and the path of peace. I therefore conclude and we come to the end of the conference for the peaceful settlement of the Palestinian question and the implementation of the two-state solution. The meeting is adjourned.
Congratulations.